Welcome to Reddit Stories Podcast. I'm Mr. Redder. In today's first story, a wild Karen has a total meltdown because OP didn't chase after a thief. Karen argues with me for not catching a thief. For context, I'm a 21-year-old guy who works at a gas station. It's one of those places that has a wall of shame where we post pictures of thieves who have been caught stealing, hoping it'll discourage any future theft. Spoiler alert, it doesn't work. Currently, we have a picture on the door of a guy who stole a pair of sunglasses with the caption, "Thief, please help identify." One day, this lady, who we'll call Karen, who looked to be around 40, walks into the store and comes straight up to my register with her energy drinks in hand. Karen looks up at the picture and immediately starts in with, "So, somebody robbed you?" I didn't want to get into the whole thing, so I replied, "Not robbed, just stole." She doesn't seem satisfied with that answer and snaps back at me, "You didn't try to go after him?" At this point, I'm just standing there confused. I don't know what she expects from me, but she's already starting to get upset, and I'm just trying to ring her up and move on. "No, I'm not going to risk my life over sunglasses," I tell her, thinking that's a reasonable response. But apparently, that's the wrong thing to say because she absolutely loses it. "Oh, so you just let people come in here and steal whatever they want, and you do nothing about it? What are you going to do? Put that picture on the door and hope they come back?" She keeps going, getting louder, and I'm just standing there like, what's happening right now? Then she starts going off about how if someone came in the store and tried to hold us up, I would just give them the cash without a struggle. "No, we file a police report. Regardless, it's not legal for me to..." Before I can finish, she cuts me off. "I can't believe you just allow people to come into your store and steal whatever they want, and you do nothing about it." At this point, I'm really just trying to get through the transaction. I'm a college student working at a gas station for $14 an hour. Not exactly the superhero type, and definitely not the person who's going to take down criminals. I don't even own this store. I'm just a cashier. "Ma'am, I don't own this store. I'm just a cashier," I say, trying to de-escalate the situation. She doesn't listen. "I can't believe you just allow people to do this," she says, still worked up. At this point, I'm just trying to get her out of the store. I want to get this over with. "Just hit 'I'm done' on the screen," I tell her. The screen's got a huge button that says "I'm done." It's kind of hard to miss. But of course, Karen starts pressing every other button on the keypad except for the one she actually should be pressing. "I hit everything and it's not working," she says, getting more frustrated. "Yes, because you didn't hit 'I'm done' on the screen," I tell her again, trying to stay calm. Finally, she hits the button and we move on. As she's walking out, she says, "I'm not trying to argue with you. I just think it's messed up that you allow people to do that." Then she storms out, still muttering under her breath. My manager, who had just come out of the bathroom at the start of this whole thing, had been listening to the whole interaction. We both just looked at each other, completely stunned, trying to wrap our heads around the fact that this woman was so upset about a theft that happened when I wasn't even working. Moral of the story, I guess every cashier should start moonlighting as Batman and put their lives on the line to stop crime. Edit. I completely forgot to mention, when the theft occurred, I wasn't even working that day, so even if I wanted to do something about it, I couldn't have. Am I the jerk for not allowing my fiance's best friend to come to our wedding? Plus updates. My fiance and I have been together for just under 6 years, 3 years of dating, and almost 2.5 years engaged. Overall, things have been pretty good. Our families get along well, and we've had a mostly smooth relationship, except for one major issue. My fiance's best friend. From day one, it felt like she was never a fan of mine. She flat out ignores me whenever we're together, but the moment she sees my fiance, it's all smiles, hugs, and an excited, "Hey best friend," while I stand there invisible right next to him. It's been like this the whole time. I tried talking to my fiance about it, telling him how hurt I was. At first, he brushed it off, saying he needed proof that it was a problem, which was incredibly frustrating. After a couple more incidents where she pulled the same stunt, he finally spoke to her about it. She made a little effort to be more polite, but it was only when we were in groups. She claimed she had no problem with me, but my fiance still didn't seem to get it. He thought I was the one making a big deal out of it and suggested that I should talk to her directly. I told him that was his job, not mine. She wasn't my friend. A few weeks ago, we went to a mutual friend's party. I tried to make eye contact with her and say hello a few times, but she completely ignored me, refusing to even look my way. My fiance noticed, and after we talked about it, it really hit me that I wasn't just being sensitive. This was a consistent lack of respect, and it hurt. I don't need her to like me, but a basic acknowledgement of my existence shouldn't be too much to ask, right? This whole situation has been eating at me. I felt like my fiance wasn't respecting me by continuing to engage with her, especially after seeing how she treated me. When you're married, aren't you supposed to be a team? I couldn't imagine allowing my friend to treat my partner this way if the roles were reversed. It all came to a head one night when we were out. I ended up telling him that I didn't want her at our wedding. I was done with the whole situation and I didn't want someone who clearly couldn't stand me anywhere near our big day. That led to a big argument and I felt guilty for the tension it caused, but it felt like the only way to take a stand. Am I the jerk for saying she can't come? Not the jerk. She's probably secretly in love with your fiance and can't stand the fact that he's with you. She's probably hoping that by pushing you out of the picture, he'll finally realize that she's the one for him. She's saying she has no issue with you because it's not about you, it's about her trying to hold on to him. OP. That's what some of my friends and family have said too. It makes sense, especially since she's hinted on social media a few times that she's the perfect woman for him and that he needs someone like her. It's crazy. Not the jerk for not wanting her at your wedding, but honestly, I think you're making a mistake by still wanting to marry him. If he truly respected you, he would have cut ties with her by now, or at least stood up for you. This is just going to get worse, and you're going to face even bigger problems down the road. Do you honestly think that not inviting her to the wedding is going to fix anything? OP. Wow, that really hit me. You're right. I've been reevaluating everything, and this one issue has been poisoning our relationship. I don't want to throw it all away, but it feels like such a lack of respect, and I'm struggling to see how we can be a strong, united couple when all this is happening. Update. After reading through all the comments, I realized something. Even though this has been the healthiest relationship I've ever had, it doesn't mean it's actually healthy. I've had multiple conversations with him about how this issue bothers me, but he still brushes it off, saying I was the only one who cared. A couple of things made me realize I had reached my breaking point. I asked him, would you be okay with our daughter's partner treating her like this? He got flustered and shut down, saying he didn't want to talk about it. That was a red flag for me. Then he said he didn't want to end his friendship with her or risk it because, what if we break up? That hit me hard. He wasn't willing to protect me even as his girlfriend. And when I told him how much it bothered me that he wanted me to just blow it off, his response was brutal. I know the way she treats you is garbage, but you're allowing one person to dictate our relationship. He followed up with, it could be worse. There are worse ways to meddle. People lie, text, and try to break up relationships. That was the moment I knew I was done. I had to get through a couple more months of pre-planned events, but hearing those words sealed the deal for me. To clarify, the pre-planned events I'm talking about are things like vacations with mutual friends, but my ex isn't part of that group, dividing up assets and figuring out a custody plan for our pets. I'm not holding out for a second chance. There won't be one. Edit 2. We're not getting married or continuing this relationship. When he admitted that his best friend treating me like garbage was no big deal, I knew it was over. I never asked him to cut anyone off, just for basic respect, like acknowledging me when she's around, and that barely ever happened. When I asked him what he would tell our daughter to do if she were in my position, his response? If she loved her partner, she shouldn't care about outside people. He then told me that he was tired of talking about it, said he had done all he could and didn't want to bring her up again. I told him that our relationship was done once our lease was up in September, apologized for bringing it up, and asked if he wanted to be alone for the evening. I really thought he was the one, but I wasn't seeing things clearly. I'm exhausted and I know I deserve better. I'm okay being alone. Update. My ex-fiance tried to include me more at group events, but by then we had already separated. Over the summer, we had many conversations, not to reconcile, but so he could understand why we broke up. He apologized for his messy and toxic friends while drunk, admitting that he needed to reevaluate his friendships. But once sober, it was back to the same excuses. This isn't that big of a deal. I don't want to talk about it. I've had worse from my friends. What I learned was that his best friend had been the side piece for 7 to 10 years while my fiance had a baby, bought the baby mama a house, car, and everything, all while stringing his best friend along. She'd always seen herself as the most important woman in his life. I'm focusing on therapy, healing, and moving on. I'm starting piano lessons, a language class, and getting back into cooking and exercise. I plan to lose 40 to 50 pounds. Thanks to everyone who offered advice and shared their thoughts. Some of you thought I was making too big a deal out of this, but it really helped me realize that I'm not crazy for feeling the way that I did. Am I the jerk for hating on a wholesome family? I work as a waitress at a family-owned cafe, and there's this situation that's been bothering me for a while now. It's about two people in particular, the daughter of the owner and my former manager from a few years ago, and her husband. They're just, well, the worst. Almost every day since I started working there, the husband calls in the morning to order food to go before he heads off to work. Sometimes he'll swing by in the afternoon for another to-go order. He doesn't tip and he doesn't pay for the food. He gets it for free, while the rest of us waitstaff have to pay half for our meals. And the kicker is that he's never worked there. One day, after I put together a huge to-go order that took a lot of time and effort, he laughed and told me he didn't have money to tip. After searching for some change, he joked, "A 300% tip on a free meal isn't too shabby." His family laughed, including his sister who works there. It felt so insulting, especially since he didn't even pay for the food in the first place. His to-go order was over $40. Lately, he and his wife have been coming in for lunch regularly. For the past 2 weeks, they've come in every shift I've worked. They sit at one of the 6 tables in our small cafe, which takes up space that could be used by other paying customers, and expect to be served. My ex-manager used to handle their orders herself when they came in, but now they expect to be treated like regular customers. Sometimes they even get up to grab their own things, which makes it hard for me to figure out how to handle them. Should I wait on them like everyone else, or should they serve themselves? They've been tipping $5 no matter the service or the total of their meal. It's incredibly frustrating because other waitresses put in a lot more effort, but they still get the same $5 tip. And again, they don't even pay for the food. They're very religious, which I don't have a problem with, but the way they preach about being good Christians and good people just feels off. Their actions don't match their words. They treat the waitstaff poorly, leave dirty tables, take up the limited number of tables we have for a long time, and just take away potential customers. And yet, they act like they're kind, genuine people who can't see how their actions affect the rest of us. The wife was a waitress, so she knows how hard it is to make money and how important it is to tip properly. One incident that really rubbed me the wrong way was when the wife took a picture of me at my other job through her car window and sent it to a group chat with her cousin and sister-in-law, who also works at the cafe. She captioned it, "New tattoo?" For context, I have a lot of tattoos, and I'm working with a tattoo shop on the side. It felt invasive and judgmental, especially since I barely know her. It made me uncomfortable, and I couldn't shake the feeling that she was making fun of me for something personal. When the cousin or sister-in-law are around, they act surprised when I ask if they can take their table. It's like they don't understand how their family being here messes with our ability to make tips. I feel like I'm being made out to be the bad guy just because I don't like them. It's hard to explain to others because everyone else sees them as this nice family, but my experience with them has been anything but that. I've been struggling with whether my feelings are justified. On the surface, they seem like a nice family, but in reality, they've made me feel disrespected and judged. I don't want to feel unreasonable, but I also know I don't like being treated this way. The sister-in-law who works with me mentioned recently that the husband thinks I don't like him, which, yeah, he's right, I don't. Some employees who aren't related to the family agree with me that they're annoying and judgmental, while the family members think I'm the one being cold or that I'm causing all the awkwardness. It's probably true because I'm not good at pretending to like people that I don't. They came in again today and I did my usual thing. I was cordial if they spoke to me, but I didn't initiate any conversation. Watching them with their baby made me feel guilty, like maybe I'm just hating on a nice family for no reason. But technically, they've never been outright rude. Am I justified in not liking them? I feel like I'm going crazy. Not the jerk. You're totally justified in feeling frustrated. It's not fair that they expect special treatment, don't tip properly, and take up valuable space that could be used by paying customers. The fact that they don't even pay for the food they order is bad enough, but then they act like they're doing you a favor by tipping you a flat 5, regardless of the service, is honestly insulting. On top of that, the wife's actions, like taking your picture and making fun of you, are completely disrespectful. You're not being cold, you're just standing up for yourself and your work, and it's okay to feel upset about the way they treat you. Am I the jerk for backing out of a 15-minute favor when it suddenly turned into an hour-plus long ordeal? So I work from home 2 days a week, and today is one of those days. My wife's workday ends at 4 and mine finishes at 5:30. Today, when my wife got home around 4:15, she called me downstairs almost immediately as she came in the door. She told me she left her car running and asked if I could take it to Discount Tire, because one of the tires was low. For those who don't know, Discount Tire offers free inflation and tire repairs as long as the issue isn't with the side wall. Without complaining, I agreed. It's only about a 5-minute drive each way, so I figured I could take a quick 15-minute break from work. I drove her car to Discount Tire, and the guy there topped off 3 of the tires, but when he got to the 4th one, his machine wouldn't dispense any air. He checked it with a manual gauge and then came to the window to tell me that the tire was under 15 psi, so he couldn't inflate it. He also said that since they weren't very busy at the moment, he could repair the tire in about half an hour. I told him I needed to get back to work and asked if he could add even a little bit of air just so I could drive the car back and have my wife bring it back later. He said no because the tire was basically flat. I called my wife to explain the situation. My plan was to ask if I should drive back home and then have her drive the car back since the wait was short. When they're busy, the wait can be over 2 hours. Or if I should make an appointment for her. But before I could even get that far, she just told me to stay and wait, even though she was already done working for the day. I told her I really needed to get back to work, and that's when she got really upset. I asked the Discount Tire guy what exactly he meant by basically flat, and he told me it was at 13 psi. I double-checked to make sure I wouldn't be at risk of damaging the rim by driving it home, and once I confirmed that everything would be fine, I told my wife I was heading back and I would be there in 5 minutes. On my way home, I got a couple of texts from her, including one that said, "I'll just have you drive me to work tomorrow, and my car can sit in the driveway for all I care." I didn't see that message until I got home, though. When I walked inside, I tried again to explain the situation. I hadn't even had a chance to tell her that the tire wasn't completely flat yet, but she refused to listen to a word I said. She told me that she wasn't going to listen to anything I had to say for the next week and that I had ruined everything. I don't remember every word that was exchanged, but I know I ended up telling her that she was acting like a child. I also said, "Fine, I'll go back there and work until 8 p.m. tonight," to which she responded with, "Good, I don't want to see you." So I went back to Discount Tire and started composing this post while I waited. Am I the jerk? Edit to answer some common questions. We do own a portable air compressor, and it takes about 5 minutes to fill one tire. It's in the trunk of her car. Taking care of car-related stuff is my responsibility, and I've always done it when she's asked me to inflate her tires. I wasn't neglecting it. The last time I added air to the tire, I told her she needed to go to Discount Tire ASAP after work because her tire loses air faster than the others. I work until 5:30 and Discount Tire closes at 6, so it would have been tight. She handles discretionary spending, so if the tire needed replacing, repairs are free at Discount Tire, she would need to be there to compare her options. Discount Tire is in the opposite direction from home compared to her work, which is probably why she didn't stop on her way home. She didn't drive my car to Discount Tire because we only have one key for it, and it didn't occur to me to take it out of my pocket before I left. And no, she's not like this all the time. Not the jerk. No win situation here. Your wife knew coming home from work that she had a tire problem, and probably that morning. She decided it's your job to take care of it, even though your workday hasn't ended. Then when the situation went sideways, she decided to get mad at you. From this point, she's pushed your boundaries and workday for her personal convenience. Solution? Get a small air compressor made for cars. It'll save her should this ever happen again and she can't make it home. Not the jerk. Why did your wife ask you to stop working to do this task for her when she was off work? She clearly knew something was up if she thought it was so urgent that she left the car running in the driveway. Rude Karen demands to eat my food, gets taught a lesson. I, 24 male, live with my flatmate Tommy, who's 25. A few weeks ago, Tommy asked if his girlfriend Bella, who's 26, could stay with us for 2 weeks. She's moving apartments and has time between leases. I begrudgingly agreed on the condition that she won't bother me for anything. I do not like Bella, mainly because she constantly picks fights with Tommy over dumb things. I also find her to be entitled, lacking empathy, and having "I'm the main character" energy. She's entertaining, but I think she's unpleasant to be around overall. So this morning was her first morning of living with us. I'm in the kitchen making my breakfast. Bella comes out, goes through our fridge, and pulls out my fruit and my Greek yogurt. I notice and tell her that both of these are mine, and she can eat from Tommy's groceries, which are all on the left side of the fridge. She then tells me, "But Tommy doesn't have fruit." I tell her there's a grocery store across the street. For some background, I plan out everything I eat each week, gym bro style. Unless my girlfriend wants to go out, I'll eat every meal at home. I also hate wasting food. I go grocery shopping once a week and I buy exactly what I know will be eaten in 1 week. No more, no less. Most weeks I cook for my girlfriend and or get her snacks and plan my groceries accordingly. But this week she's out of town visiting family and I have no food to spare. I'm cutting right now and will fall asleep hungry and cranky if I miss a single snack. That's why I'm unwilling to share. Anyways, Bella said that I'm being stingy and selfish and a bad host. I told her she isn't my guest. I'm letting her stay with us as a favor to Tommy, but I'd prefer if she wasn't here. She told me that this is why I'm single. She doesn't know that I have a girlfriend because she doesn't bother asking about my life, and I'm happy to not share. I told her I'd rather stay single than date someone like her, and she's lucky Tommy puts up with her. She went running to Tommy, demanding he make me apologize. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk, and I think you already know that. She can control and manipulate her boyfriend, but not you. If she takes any more food from you, bill her with interest. OP. The main reason I feel bad is that this is probably gonna rebound to Tommy. He apologized on her behalf and said that if he were me, he'd stand his ground without apologizing for anything. But he also said it would make his life easier if I did, which I already knew. Not the jerk. She's not your girlfriend or your responsibility. You told her right. If she wants fruit, the store's around the corner. It sounds like she isn't used to hearing the word no. Not the jerk. You have no obligation to make Tommy's life easier by letting his girlfriend walk all over you. You also have no obligation to feed her. With a store across the street, she's just being an entitled brat, and you shouldn't let her get away with it. I just can't imagine someone letting me live with them rent-free and me not repaying them by buying groceries or something, maybe cooking a few meals, let alone expecting them to provide for me. That's some crazy entitlement. Well, what would you do in this situation? Would you let Bella eat your food or not? Please let us know. I'd find a new roommate is what I'd do. Tommy boy ain't got no spine. My wife married me because of my best friend. We are from the same high school. Apparently, my wife had a huge crush on my best friend since junior high, and my best friend knew about this. So it's been 10 years since we got married, and she still loves him. That makes it 10 plus years of one-sided love from her to him and 12 years of my one-sided love to her. She only got close to me and dated me so she could be in touch with my best friend. She wanted to be a part of his life no matter what, so she chose me as a scapegoat. And here I thought that she loved me. How did I find this out? She told me 3 weeks ago. Why did she tell me? Because I decided we were ready to have kids, and I brought up the discussion over dinner. She told me she could make love with me, she could marry me, and even act like she loved me, and obviously did a good job at it. But she can't bear to give birth to a kid that's mine and not his. She can't give birth to a kid who looks like me and not him. So she can't have my baby. Then she left me that day. She didn't even say sorry. Not that it would make it any better, but she did say that she did her best. Did her best, and this is what it is. That's the end of the story. I have no more to tell. She just left and isn't picking up my calls, emails, texts, or whatever way of contacting her. I haven't reached out to my best friend either. I know they're not together. Actually, maybe I'll be happy for her if she does end up with him at this point. And here I am, not even feeling anything, and I'm not sure if this is normal. This feels like a whole big play. I'm not even sure if I even put this in the right text. Thank you for all your concerns, and just to clear some things up. We did talk about having kids before this, a couple of times actually, but I wasn't very serious about it until now. She said she wasn't really into having kids yet, and she just wanted to enjoy ourselves when we could. I didn't know that would mean something so differently to her. She made it clear that she isn't seeking any relationship with my friend. She told me that she just doesn't really imagine having a relationship with him, and that will be how it is for whoever knows how long. I know this sounds weird, but she told me this whole one-sided love is a bit of a permanent habit of hers that she can't get rid of. Ever. I don't know if she seek therapy for this because I was out of my mind at the time to even ask some of the questions I have, and I want her to answer. Divorce. I'm not sure how I'll be dealing with this. I really loved her. To sound even more crazy, I still do. No, I don't intend to continue this marriage. This marriage was meant to break from the very start now that I think about it. I'm just really tired at the moment to even seek an attorney, psychiatrist, or therapist. I know I'm also weird, but I want to talk to her first before doing things legally. There are still many things I want to ask her about, hear about her, and be mad about, but I just can't do any of it right now. My buddy probably doesn't know that she still has feelings. Who would have known that a person could have one-sided feelings towards someone for over a decade? I don't intend on talking about it to him until some of the things are cleared up on my side. Update. My wife, for one, is a good person, or at least she was. At least the person who I was with would be viewed as a good person from a social perspective. I'm not saying this to protect her, I'm giving you an idea of how people would view her in general if you knew her. She can't pass by homeless people without giving them anything out of her purse. She can't let a friend be sad and do nothing about it. She's full of emotions, empathy, sympathy, love, etc. She volunteers every weekend for seniors and homeless people. Many more can be listed, but you get my point. She was pretty attractive too. That's why I fell in love with her. She was charming, smart, and kind, a dream girl. I wouldn't have asked for anyone else. We were all friends, as I've mentioned, and when she showed interest in me, I also eventually grew feelings for her pretty quickly. Why would I hesitate? Like I said, she was my dream girl. For all I know, I was her first guy. She never was with anyone else that I know for sure. Her family was strict, and she lived with them until marriage, so I wouldn't say she really had a chance to get physical with anyone. So yes, I was her first. I wouldn't in a million years suspect that all these times were a lie. Well, she did a darn good job at keeping this secret of hers. I was devoted to making her happy. I would have done anything for her. I loved her to the core, every inch of her. I did everything I could to make her happy. That's why it hurts so much right now, being betrayed. Or was it really a betrayal if she never loved me in the first place? Because I sincerely believed her. I mean, how would anyone pretend to ask for a kiss, a hug, and affection to someone for over 10 years if they never even loved them? Would you really want to cuddle up with someone that you don't love? Would you really want to share the same bed with someone you never loved? Would you really want to hold someone's hand that you never truly loved? I mean, for over a decade. How can anyone be this good at acting? Yes, I'm probably in denial, and I probably will be for a long time, because apparently you can do all of that stuff without actually loving someone, which I still can't believe. I got up with my buddy last night and asked him what's new, drank a bit, and finally I brought this conversation up. It wasn't easy to bring it up. I mean, to put it in literal text, my wife married me because she loved you. He was shocked, of course. It's probably just as much as I was. He didn't know what to say for a long time. It seems like she never contacted him even after she left. With that, to my surprise, other than our small dinner gatherings together that did happen sometimes, she never really contacted him personally. To be honest, she didn't really join those dinner gatherings much either. I asked him, "Did my wife ever tell you she had feelings for you?" To that he mentioned, "A long time ago, yes. She did say she had feelings for me. But that was like more than a decade ago, long before you two were dating, which we were all young and dumb. We talked for a long time about a lot of things, mostly about our past, our school years, college life, etc. And now here I am feeling guilt. I feel guilty to the point that it hurts my guts." He didn't ask to be involved in this messy story, but I decided it was a good idea to talk to him about it. I regret it. He said sorry, even though it was not his fault. I'm a terrible person for this. As for my wife, we're meeting up in 2 weeks. If you ask why 2 weeks, she left an email saying she's in another country because she also felt like she needed to go off to somewhere to put things together, and she'll return in 2 weeks. If you ask why I'm meeting up with her, she asked if it's okay with me. She wants to meet up for a talk, and I agreed to it. I have lots of things to ask her. I haven't really had proper sleep for weeks. I'm so tired. My husband is mad that I have a higher IQ, and he says that he's not attracted to me anymore. He came home one day and gave me a login to some IQ test, and I scored higher than him. First he was in disbelief, then a bit sulky. I thought the whole thing was stupid, and I never thought or experienced that I'm smarter, and I never understood the logic of these tests. Anyway, since then he has changed. He doesn't want to cuddle or kiss me or anything. Last Saturday, we attended a birthday party for my little nephew, and my husband spent the night chatting up my sister-in-law's sister, who's very pretty. When we got home, I just had it up to here with him and started crying because he ignored me for at least 3 weeks, and now he's flirting with other people. He denied everything. He denied being changed with me since the test, but I wasn't backing down this time. I told him that I wasn't stupid and that he stopped being affectionate since that day. He finally admitted that he was no longer attracted to me. I asked him if he still wasn't attracted to me and why. I haven't changed. I'm still me. He apologized and said that he would get his crap together and that he knows how silly this is. But he has been wary around me since. I still think that he's turned off by this. What can I do now? Update. We're taking a break. So I told my husband that I've had enough. He's obviously had a change of heart, and I'm not going to be there to witness him falling out of love with me. The mere thought is painful. He called me drama and said that while his reaction was bitter and stupid, I'm taking a huge leap in the wrong direction since he already acknowledged his mistake and he's working towards being better. I told him that wasn't true. He's still avoiding me like I'm a leper. I asked him to see his phone. He's been talking a bit too friendly to a coworker. It started immediately after this whole test thing, like he was determined to hurt me, or I don't know what he was trying to accomplish otherwise. In one of the texts, he complains that I was neglectful and full of myself. How ironic to pretend that I'm the neglectful one when he's not even kissed my cheek in over a month. I felt it was a matter of time before he would cheat on me. I'm not staying for that. I asked him to move out. This morning, he texted me that he loved me and that he was sorry. He didn't know what he was trying to prove to me or to himself, but that he loves me and finds me very attractive. I call BS, honestly. He's been so cold with me, flirting with everyone that looked his way, and now he's all loving and affectionate. He wants us to try therapy, and he suggested that he needed to work on his insecurities with a therapist too. We have a daughter together who's 8 months that we love more than anything, but I don't know. Why does it feel like it's over and that I don't trust him anymore? I feel like I know now what he's capable of doing when faced with adversity, and going through rough patches is inevitably in every marriage. I don't like his method of dealing with it. I'm too intelligent to put up with this. Those tests are often not that accurate, but this time I think OP really was way smarter than her husband. What was his endgame here? Shaking my head. I don't put much stock in IQ tests, but she really is smarter than him. My husband also found one of those IQ tests online and convinced me to take it. When I scored higher than him, he wouldn't shut up about it for weeks, but I was like, oh my god. Well, what would you prefer? Would you like a partner with a higher IQ than yourself or not? Please let us know.
Obviously, we know that's what you like, Reddit boy. Your IQ's lower than the approval rate for the new background art we tried recently.
Am I the jerk for refusing to go to my sister's child-free wedding despite not having kids? Background: I'm the youngest of 4 girls. My 2 older sisters, who are 32 and 30, both have kids. My third sister, who's 27, doesn't, and she's getting married at the end of the month. I, 23, also don't have kids, but my partner and I hope to someday in the future. Oldest sister lives overseas with her husband, and so is mostly irrelevant in the situation. Her and sister 3 don't speak. Anyway, sister 3 is having a child-free wedding. She is, like, aggressively child-free. We really don't get along well. So basically our parents are old. I do love them, and they can no longer drive. I can't drive either, but my husband can, as can my older sister. She's a single mom though, and had no one to watch her kids. My husband and soon-to-be brother-in-law hate each other. They grew up together, and there's just lots of bad feelings there, so my husband wasn't going to the wedding. I was going to have him drop me off. In the end, last weekend, after months of anxiety, I said I would stay with the kids so my parents and sister could go. She will drive them and attend in my place. My sister lost it at that, then decided she would have someone else drive our parents and asked me to come. I told her no, my older sister wants to go. I'd rather her be there anyway, as if one of our parents falls or something, she knows what to do. Sister lost it and said that I was being selfish. This is where I may be the jerk. I then told her I didn't see the point in going to an event half the family would be missing from, referencing the kids. She said it shouldn't matter to me because I don't even have kids. I then said they were better company than her and point blank refused to attend her wedding. Even if the kids have a babysitter, which sister is now offering to pay for, I wouldn't go. She's so upset. I feel a little bad, but not much. My older sister says I'm in the right. Second sister says she feels really bad. Our parents aren't really acknowledging the situation. I think they just want to see their daughter get married. Am I the jerk? CEO didn't understand what my department did apparently. Some backstory. I was a general troubleshooter for my company. My job involved a lot of traveling to different clients we support. My area of work is Ontario, Canada, and some of the nearby states in the US, New York, Massachusetts, Vermont, Pennsylvania. I did most of my traveling by car since my schedule can change quite quickly and flying can become very expensive. I had one colleague who is technically my subordinate, but we have a very good working relationship and would often handle calls independently of each other, only checking in by phone once a week and in person once a month when necessary. A little over a year ago, I get an email calling me to the head office in New York City for a meeting with the CEO and the board of directors regarding my job. I check with my colleague and he gets the same email. So we make our travel plans and meet in New York City the following week. We have dinner together the night before our meeting and can't figure out between us what the issue is about. It's rare to get summoned to head office and more rare for things to be so vague. When we go into the meeting the next day, we're informed that the company is dividing our department between the US and Canada, and there would be a new position to deal with the US clients and we were to restrict ourselves to Canada. Both my colleague and I were a little shocked at this since neither of us had ever heard that this was being discussed. I asked who the new person for the US was and we then learned it was a new hire that the CEO had taken a special interest in. Trying to be of good spirit, I offered to train the new person. There are many realities of this job that are not in the job description. CEO accepted and then brought in the new hire. In walks a young lady who looks about 23 years old and wears an expression that she knows everything. She sits at the table and immediately makes it very clear that she wants nothing to do with us. We have the CEO, Bob, the new hire, Karen, and my colleague, Jim. Bob: welcome, Karen. We've just informed OP and Jim about the change in structure, and they're willing to give you the support you need to get yourself started. Karen and Bob both look at me. Me: glad to have you aboard, Karen. I think both Jim and I have a lot of experience to share with you, and we're happy to do so. Perhaps it would be better in a separate meeting so we don't take the board's time. Karen:
Thank you all. I have a lot of ideas about how I can streamline our department and new policies I can introduce that should save the company a lot of money and expenses.
I'm very confused at this point. Karen is speaking as though she's my supervisor, and that is distinctly not what Bob spoke to us about. I can see some of the board members giving strange looks at this as well. Me: Bob, perhaps I misunderstood the new roles here. Would you please clarify? Bob: sure. Karen is the new head of your department, and both you and Jim will answer directly to her. Board member: that isn't what we discussed or approved as a board. We weren't fully convinced of dividing the department, but this is completely against what we discussed. Karen:
What did you discuss then?
Board member: that your department would be divided between the US and Canada. OP and Jim would remain north of the border, and you would run the US. Karen:
That's not what I was told, but I can work with that, as long as these two stay out of my way.
Indicating me and Jim. Jim and I are both shocked and insulted to be spoken to in this manner. We're both very good at our jobs, and before today have never seen this woman in our lives. Bob: that settles it. OP, effective immediately, you and Jim have nothing to do with Karen. Do not interfere with her work at all. You are both to restrict yourselves to working within Canada only. With that, he ended the meeting and left the room with Karen close behind him. Jim and I sat there stunned for a moment, and some of the board members came up to us to express their shock and sympathies with us. I had enough presence of mind to ask if we could get a written directive of this change and was assured that we would. Sure enough, both Jim and I got emails with a new directive from Bob by the end of the day. So after sending an email to all of our US-based clients advising them of the change and giving them the contact information for Karen, Jim and I made our way back to Toronto and reorganized ourselves for working within Ontario only. This meant much less traveling for us, so it gave more room to breathe. Within a week, I was getting complaints from our US-based clients that Karen was not answering emails and missing appointments. I forwarded these emails to Karen and copied the entire board, including Bob. Another week later, I get a phone call from Karen, who sounds frantic but won't admit that she needs help. She makes pleasant conversation and then asks how I would handle a particular type of situation. I tell her I'm really not interested in discussing work, as that might be seen as interfering in her work. Later that evening, I get a call from Jim telling me he had the same conversation with Karen and handled it the same way. By the end of that month, I get a call from Bob asking if I'll take over the entire department again. I politely tell him no, since I don't want to interfere with Karen in her role. For the next 3 months, I'm getting emails and phone calls from US clients asking if they can have me back as their contact. This confirms an idea that had been in my head. Jim and I had actually grown our client base in Ontario since restricting ourselves here. So I had lunch with Jim one day and asked him if he wanted to go into business with me as partners, starting our own consulting firm. We couldn't provide everything our current company provided, but we could provide a high degree of professionalism for our specific field, and it seemed we had a ready-made client base. By the end of the lunch, he was on board and we started the necessary steps to get ourselves set up. As soon as we were clear, we both submitted our resignations with explanations of why. The next time clients contacted us, we told them we no longer worked for the company. When they asked if we still worked in the field, we told them we had established our own firm and what services we offered. A month later, we had 60% of our US clients on board, and since the former company had no Canadian support at all, we had 80% of the Canadian clients. Within 2 months, we had 80% of the US and 90% of Canadian clients. In the years since that time, our new company has grown enough that we've hired 7 new consultants. Jim and I find ourselves doing more office work than road work and a lot of client courting. Our old company has had to stop offering the in-person troubleshooting, what our department did, and Bob was fired by the board. No idea what happened to Karen. Update. Because of interest expressed in the comments, I made a phone call to one of the board members I remained friendly with. Here are some answers to questions. How did Karen get the job? Apparently, Bob had set up a business school scholarship out of his own money, which had put something like 6 or 7 students through business school. Karen was the latest graduate, and Bob wanted to give her a start in the business world. Was Bob hooking up with Karen? No clear answer was given, but Bob's wife divorced him shortly after he was fired from the company. Make of that what you will. What happened to Karen? Apparently, she got a job as middle management in a financial services company. Hopefully, she can still build a life for herself and has learned some important lessons. What happened to Bob? Last I heard, he was a regional director for a large hotel chain. Hopefully, he also lands on his feet. Everyone deserves a chance to make a life for themselves. Some questioned why the board was there for this meeting. I honestly don't know, and neither did the board member I spoke with. It was one of their regularly scheduled meetings, and Bob added things to the agenda. Some questioned my use of non-compete, saying it's not nice. It's a normal reality in the business world. The oddity is that my old company did not have one. The non-compete I have my employees sign is not overly burdensome. It protects our intellectual property and professional contacts. It does not in any way restrict the employee's ability to work in the field. That said, Jim and I have both agreed that if an employee leaves us on good terms and reasonably asks to be released from the non-compete, we would oblige. Some inquired if we're still hiring. Unfortunately, we're not. We're taking a pause from expansion right now as Jim's wife is dealing with cancer. I don't want Jim to worry about the office while taking care of his wife, so we've decided to maintain our size, which I can do with minimal input from Jim, until his wife is in remission and he has a chance to rest and return his attention to our company. Jim and I treat each other like family, so this is a natural step for us. Neighbor tries to flex, gets what he deserves. Spec home build with a $12 million budget and a 16-month schedule. Next door neighbor immediately qualifies as a complete jerk. Knows everybody, including the principals of the company I work for. At the very beginning of the work, he asks for a row of redwood trees to be planted as screening between the properties. Principal grants his request as a good neighbor gesture, $31,000. Every step of the project, he either stands out at the end of the driveway taking pictures or he's flying his drone over the lot. He starts asking questions about whether or not work in progress is covered under the permit. He confides that he has obtained a copy of the permit and a set of plans. One day, he asks us for a meeting to discuss the redwood trees. Yes, those trees. He comes over at the appointed time and introduces his wife's landscape architect. Famous guy apparently, and he tries pulling some muscle moves by trying to convince us that the redwood trees are stealing their water. They also don't fit his vision for the project that they're considering, which will be a total side and backyard makeover with walkways, stone walls, fountains, etc. He wants mature oak trees instead. Cut down and remove the redwoods at our expense and plant new oak trees, also at our expense, because, screening. We decline, which sends famous architect guy and his wife into a rage. They decide to move forward with their project anyway, and the major earth moving, concrete forming, irrigation, etc. are all getting placed. Mr. Drone Guy continues to make efforts to get the oak tree swapped in under threats that maybe some of the work we're doing isn't covered under the permit. Seems he also acted as the GC for his own remodel, so he must really know what he's talking about. He sends emails, registered letters from his lawyer, all in an effort to get us to swap out the trees. Finally, we are within sight of completing our project, and from the second floor, we can see that they have really transitioned their whole yard into little parklets with mature plantings and walkways and all the other stuff. It's impressive. So I call the town for a courtesy inspection prior to final, and the next day the inspector, an old friend whose father is also an old friend, stops by to tour the property for any red flags. I save the best for last, and we make it upstairs and make it to the best possible viewing point of the neighbor's magnificent landscape project, and my inspector friend casually but loudly says, "What's all that? I never saw a permit come through for all of that." And he bounds downstairs and heads back to the office, I'm guessing to pull files. Here comes the best part. Through property searches that we always perform as due diligence, we discovered the neighbor's side yard in its entirety is an 80-foot wide utility easement for the single largest underground water aqueduct for the entire region. Can't be built on. We kept mum. Now, because there's also a seasonal creek that crosses said easement, fish and game are notified of the work in progress. In addition, we now have the State Water Resources Board, along with the major water utility company inspections and enforcement department making inquiries along with the town building department. No permit application was ever submitted for any of the work that Mr. Drone Guy had done. Oof. Our property sold, and during some modifications for the new owner, we watched with subdued glee as every stick and stone was removed from the offending area and was to be left in a natural state for eternity. Major fines were also levied. Am I the jerk for always turning down hangouts with my friends when they ask to bring their kids? I have a friend group of 7 women from uni. I'm the only one that's child-free, but 1 is childless, 2 are pregnant with their first, and 3 have kids. We as a group rarely meet up. I've seen all of them maybe twice in the last year, and we all live in the same city. Every time someone asks to meet up and we finally find a date everyone is available, one of the moms always asks if they can bring their kid or their kids. It's usually one of 2 moms, as the third actually wants to have a kid-free evening. And before anyone else can answer, the other moms say yes. All 3 moms have husbands who can watch their kids. Most of them also have both sets of grandparents who are involved, but somehow they never manage to find someone who can babysit, as they call it. So at this point, I've stopped answering until they've set a time and place, someone has asked about kids, and I say I can't make it. I hang out with them one-on-one or in smaller groups instead. Well, a few days ago, we agreed to finally meet up. No one had asked about kids yet, and we were having a barbecue with wine night. Well, who shows up with their 8-year-old? Yep, one of the moms. I clearly didn't hide my annoyance, and one of the girls asked me why. I just waved it off, and 30 minutes later I excused myself and left. Said I didn't feel well. In those 30 minutes, we hadn't had any adult talk, we were just entertaining their kid. I'd rather go home than do this for another 3 to 4 hours. After I left, I think they realized this was a pattern, and I got a text from most of the girls in the group. Some calling me a jerk, others just saying they were annoyed with me for leaving, while the third mom had my back and asked to meet up later that week to have a proper wine night. I don't dislike kids at all. I work with them every day, and I don't want to spend my time off relaxing with friends having to entertain other people's kids again. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. Wine night with friends from college pretty much definitely means no kids. No jerks here. It sounds like your friend circle is naturally fracturing. It's not necessarily a bad thing. It's quite natural for young parents to want to socialize with their kids in tow when their friendship circle consists of other parents in the same situation. It's also a nice way for their kids to get friends. Not the jerk, but you're being passive-aggressive. I understand not wanting to be around kids in your free time, but you need to establish early on in the planning process that it's just a gal's night or something to that effect. You can't assume the others will automatically think of or want to arrange childcare when one of you suggests hanging out and then get mad when they don't. Am I the jerk for ignoring my friend's phone calls and telling her to buzz off? I, 37 male, have been friends with Lucy, 38 female, for about 30 years. Lucy always calls me when she has a problem, as we've been friends for so long and I've always been there for her. This can be something as small as editing her resume or something as big as needing a loan to make rent. Unfortunately, Lucy has only one mode, emergency. So whether it's a crisis or a simple problem, she always approaches it in emergency mode. The other day, I was in the middle of taking a timed assessment for work on my phone. I was about 5 minutes into it when Lucy called me. As I was in the middle of the assessment, I declined the call and put her on voicemail. As soon as I did this, she called back. I once again declined the call and put her on voicemail. She called back a 3rd time and I did the same thing. Keeping in mind, every time she did this, it interrupted my assessment. The clock kept running and the screen filled with her phone call taking away the question. She texted me, which popped up on my screen. 911, call me. I responded, busy, call you in 20. She replied, please, it's an emergency. I closed the text and continued my assessment. She then started calling again. I put 5 calls in a row on voicemail. I was behind on my assessment, so I tried to power through, but stress was getting to me. Lucy texted me again. Need you now. I lost it and texted back, buzz off. In 30 years, neither of us has ever said that to each other, but in that moment, I just wanted her to leave me alone. She didn't respond, but stopped calling. When I finished my assessment, I called her back, and she threw me to voicemail. I texted her and said I was done and I could talk now. She replied, it's fine, I took care of it. I later learned that her car had broken down and she needed a ride to work so she wouldn't miss her shift. She wound up calling her father, she was late for work, and got a written warning. She's been very cool to me, and I feel very badly that I've hurt her. I've apologized for what I said, and she just says, it's fine, without any further comment. I'm beginning to doubt if my reaction was justified and feel horrible for damaging our friendship. Am I the jerk for how I reacted and not helping my friend when she was in need? Not the jerk. It wasn't a 911, it was an inconvenience. It sounds like a toxic relationship in which she just uses you. Move on, dude. She's not a friend. Not the jerk. She failed to consider that you could possibly be doing something that cannot be interrupted because she's the main character. And now, having learned that she was interrupting you in the middle of something critical, her response is not to apologize, but to act as though you were in the wrong for not stopping whatever you're doing, anything, because she's the priority? That's messed up. This person is not a friend. She considers you a servant. Not the jerk. I got irritated just reading this. She must be absurdly entitled if she thinks she can simply demand that you drop what you're doing, whatever it is, the moment she calls. My daughter is demanding to use her college fund for a wedding and a house. Backstory. I, 43 female, have 4 kids. Elle, who's 22, female, Katie, who's 17, Cam, who's 15, and Isla, who's 5, and I'm also currently pregnant right now. Me and my husband, who's 50, male, started adding to college funds every month for each of our kids pretty much as soon as we found out that we were pregnant. I won't say the exact amount, but my husband has an excellent job, so it's more than most. We never told our kids because it just didn't feel necessary. Elle got pregnant when she was 16 and ended up dropping out of school. I was very disappointed, but I understood. However, I was under the impression she would return later, but she still has no plans to. The dad stuck around, and now they have one more kid who's 3 and one on the way. They're engaged, but don't plan to get married until they can afford it. They were doing okay financially for a while, but due to the market right now, they've been struggling because Elle can't find a job since she doesn't have a diploma, so we've been loaning them money for the time being. Katie is a senior and just got accepted into college. We've been setting everything up, and obviously she knows about the fund now. Katie and Elle were talking, and she was telling Elle about the school, and Elle asked how she was planning on paying for it. Katie responded, "My college fund." I was in the room while they were talking, and this made me panic. We had just planned on splitting it between the remaining 4 since we knew that they were going to college. Elle asked me if they all had one, and I wasn't going to lie, so I said yes. She got really excited and went to call her fiance and tell him the good news. I was confused and told her that she couldn't have the money. She asked me why, and I said it's for school. She got upset and left my house. The next day, I got a call from Elle. She was crying and begging me to let her have the funds so she could finally afford a down payment and maybe even a wedding. I told her she could have the money if she goes back to school, and whatever money is left over, she could use for whatever she wants to. She got super mad and started yelling at me and saying it's her money. I told her that it was my money and those were my conditions, and she hung up. Now we're being harassed by her fiance's family. They aren't as fortunate as us, calling us jerks and a lot of other names, saying it's all gonna go to waste if she doesn't use it. We're setting her up for failure, etc. Now I'm wondering if I'm the jerk because my dad said we should just give her the money as we saved it for her after all. Update. My daughter came over on Thursday and we were able to work things out. We both apologized and had a long discussion. She will be getting her GED and will be going to trade school in exchange for me giving her whatever money is left over. She hasn't decided which one yet, but it will probably be cosmetology. Her fiance's family has apologized. We also decided to pay for a small wedding ceremony and reception as a gift. I wonder if Elle would have gone back to school if she had known about the money. As a teen with a baby and no money, one concentrates on survival, not on education. If her parents had told her about the college fund, she might have made different choices, maybe getting an education and not having a second and third kid without career prospects, etc. The weirdest thing to me is that there was apparently no discussion about her daughter's future when she was 16. How is that not a conversation? Okay, you're dropping out of school and having a kid. What's your plan for the future? Dad and I have a college fund for you and would like you to go back to school. Is that so hard? Your kid is having a kid, and your reaction to her dropping out of school is, "I was very disappointed, but I understood." They clearly have financial resources. I just don't get it. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her daughter? Please let us know.
I know this is the unpopular opinion, but college funds are set aside by parents for college, not to use however you please. Just because your parents have saved year after year for you to get an education doesn't mean you're entitled to use that amount of money however you want to. Don't at me.
My fiance got a face tattoo without talking to anyone. My fiance, Kim, I've just learned is completely insane. She took some days off work this week, being sick, and avoided seeing most people in person. She claimed she was feeling sick and just wanted to stay home alone. She's never given me any indication that she would lie about this in the 6 years we've been together. No one in her family had any worries because she was a stable individual and would never do anything crazy. She got a face tattoo. She took 3 sick days off of work to recover from the fact that she got a face tattoo. She told no one of this plan beforehand. I've never in our entire time together been talked to about tattoos by Kim. She showed no indication that she was even interested in getting any. I was not even the first to learn. Her sister visited her because she was worried after Kim canceled meeting with her for lunch on the third day of being sick and got the grand reveal. She didn't tell anyone beforehand because she didn't want to be talked out of it and hid the results because of the swelling and the redness from getting the tattoo. She thought we would react badly and not be able to understand the artistic meaning. Kim is Asian American. She got Japanese symbols going down her forehead and under her eye. I don't know the meaning of them. I don't really know if I care to know the meaning of them. Kim's parents are Japanese immigrants. According to her sister, who was nice enough to inform me of this whole debacle, this is a big no-no in Japanese culture. Tattoos have links to crime and are looked down upon. Her parents are beside themselves, and that's a whole other set of drama that I can't even begin to approach. Kim talked to me last night about it and acted offended and started a fight with me because I told her it was absolutely insane of her to do this. She works a public-facing job. She talks face-to-face with clients in the financial industry. The minute her boss finds out, the career that she went to school for will be over. She actually didn't consider her job or family or me at all and decided a long time ago that she was going to express herself freely without any concerns. I'm worried about her now. This is not normal. She blocked my number after our fight and is ghosting me and her sister because we're trying to help. But dear Lord, this is far beyond me. I cannot comprehend what I'm even supposed to do right now. Kim's lost her mind. Is there any chance I'll be happily married to this? A woman who went and got a face tattoo and hid that fact because she knew we would all talk her out of it. Dear Lord, I really need to run, don't I? Update. The engagement is pretty much off. Kim has told me she never wants to see me again, and I woke up this morning with her ring and a box of stuff that I gave her on my porch. I don't know what's going on with her. Her sister and family have been trying their best, but nothing on their end is working. I brought up to her sister the idea this is a mental breakdown and they're looking into getting her help. It's painfully slow considering Kim is not responding to anything and is refusing to talk to anyone. I really don't know what to say here, I guess. To answer some questions, Kim is 29 and I'm 28. In the 7 years I've known her, she has never acted like this at all. She had a good relationship with her parents, and while they were a bit overbearing at times, they supported her in going to college and getting a career rather than starting a family. From what I've gathered, they probably would have been fine with any tattoo she got as long as it wasn't on her face, neck, or hands. Even then, this kind of behavior is as far from Kim as I can imagine. She just lost her mind out of nowhere. It's not like I can do anything about it either. She's blocked my number and does not want to see me. I'm just at a loss for words. One day I'm engaged, and the next I'm not, and my ex has a face tattoo. Update. This was just the start of her doing everything she could to ruin her life. She broke up with me and called off our 7-year relationship when I questioned why she did this. She worked in a client-facing job for an incredibly large financial institution and was let go within a month of showing back up for work after getting her tattoo. I kept in contact with Kim's sister hoping for some news. They tried to get her help as they thought she was having some kind of psychotic break. However, she eventually called the police on her own family, claiming that they were harassing her. After that, I decided to just walk away. Kim didn't just destroy her own life. When she broke up with me, I felt numb. I knew this wasn't Kim doing this. I wanted to believe deep down that Kim was always like this. Always this impulsive crazy who would ruin her life by getting a face tattoo. I tried to convince myself that I had not lost a wonderful woman who I had spent 7 years of my life with. However, the person who made these choices was not Kim. The woman who told me over the phone she hated my guts for not supporting her. The woman who wrote she hated me and only ever stayed with me out of pity. That was not the woman I asked to marry. That wasn't Kim. That was someone who I came to find out was having a mental breakdown. The day I walked away and told her sister I could not deal with it anymore was the worst day of my life. It hit me like a train. The numbness and denial of what I lost hit me all at once. I almost quit my own job and moved back home to my parents. I can only thank my boss for being so understanding that she let me take 4 weeks off to deal with what happened. She and the rest of my team went far beyond what should ever be expected of coworkers and management that makes me realize how close I was to leaving my job I actually enjoy. I never moved on from Kim, but I came to accept what happened. I thought I was okay until 2 weeks ago. I got a call from Kim. She had blocked my number and done everything she could to remove me from her life. My mind just blanked when I saw it was her calling. I picked up and it was actually her. We didn't talk. I did not know what else to say to her. We decided she would come over to my place and we talked. The tattoo is still there, but she's covering it up now with makeup. She says when she has the funds, she's going to look into getting it removed if possible. She had lost a lot of weight since I last saw her. She's not been able to find a new job. She'll probably need to move to a new city for that. She wasn't the Kim I had fallen in love with. She was like a shell of her former self. Something just wasn't there anymore that used to be. Kim told me what had happened. The year leading up to the tattoo was awful for her. The stress of everything seemed to pile up more and more. I'll respect her and keep much of what she told me secret. However, the thing that's important is that she secretly started taking things she shouldn't have to keep her performance up at work to deal with everything. And one day, she just out of nowhere decided she hated everything about her life. She explained why at the time she wanted the tattoo. It doesn't really make sense, but a lot of what she was thinking at the time didn't. And from there, she just lost control of everything. I won't talk about what happened after she disappeared, but it's not pretty. There are things she did that will follow her for the rest of her life. It explained a lot, but it did not make things any better. We talked for nearly the entire night. She didn't leave my place until almost 4 a.m. Since then, she said that she wants to try and get back together with me. She admitted she knows things cannot be the same, yet she wants to try. I haven't talked to anyone about what I'm about to say yet. I've held off on talking to Kim about it because it feels selfish, but there's something about the way Kim acts about the way it affected my life that irks me. When we talked that night, she said that I was lucky she cut me off. I was lucky I didn't get put through any of this. I was lucky that my crazy ex wasn't at my door screaming or showing up to my work and causing a scene. She acts like my life wasn't affected at all. I told her what happened after she left, how much it hurt, how I almost quit my own job and moved across the country. Her response was dismissive, like because I didn't go through with that, I don't get to complain. She acted like because I was not the one with a tattoo on my face, I don't get to act like it's having long-lasting effects on me. She didn't even apologize for the hateful note that she left with my things when she returned them, or for the phone call where she called me a manipulative, selfish jerk who was just trying to use her, or even just for breaking up with me. She knows she was wrong to do it, but it's almost as if she's acting like because she had a breakdown, I can't hold her accountable for what she did to me because it wasn't long-lasting. I texted her last night saying how hard it was for me when she left. She ignored it entirely and just tried to move on. No acknowledgement at all. I don't know why, but it really hurt me. It hurt me so much. I feel like I did back when all those emotions finally hit me after she left. I wish she had just never come back into my life now. I wish I didn't know whatever happened. I wish I hadn't picked up the call because it hurts. But a part of me feels like I'm being selfish or complaining too much, that I don't get to feel this way because I'm not the one who had the mental breakdown. I would really love to know what tattoo artist even agreed to this. I have a ton of tattoos myself. We do not tattoo faces, necks, or hands of clients we don't know. This is what's called the Disqualified for Life Club, because you're disqualified from getting a lot of jobs. I personally don't tattoo these areas for that reason. My shop would have flat out refused to do this. I saw videos of my fiance cheating during her bachelorette party. I can't believe I'm involved in a story like this. I haven't actually talked to anyone about what happened, even though a lot of people are trying to. I think I just need to vent a little bit before I talk to anyone. My girlfriend and I were together 4 years, and we were engaged to be married. Last weekend, she had her bachelorette party. I didn't have a problem with it, especially after what she told me her plan was. Her and some friends were going to rent an Airbnb or something, a big place with like 4 bedrooms, and they were just going to get trashed and party and hang out. The day of the party, she was at my place, a 2-bedroom apartment. One room I use as a home office. I'm a self-employed investor. She makes all of the arrangements and goes to meet her friends. We texted a little bit, but as the party warmed up, we stopped, and I figured they were just having fun. After midnight, I start getting ready for bed and notice that the computer in my office isn't turned off. Rather, the black screen was just a screensaver. It turns out Fiance had not logged out and her messenger was still open on the computer. There was a group chat where her and the girls had been planning everything, and a lot of videos were uploaded to the chat. I was a little curious, and I started watching some of the videos. Most of them were pretty innocent, just a group of 15 getting drunk and dancing and whatever. Then there was a video of a woman going to the front door and about 10 guys enter the apartment. I don't know who they were and I didn't recognize anyone. There were a couple videos of the guys and girls dancing and drinking, and then the worst happened. A video started of my fiance making out with a guy on the sofa. She stops and rolls over and starts making out with another one. Then she ends up going into a room with 2 of them. There was also a video of them coming out of that room that according to the timestamps was 5 minutes later, but that doesn't mean anything. For all I know, the videos were an hour apart, and they were all just uploaded at the same time. Seeing all this was like a sledgehammer to me. I walked into the bathroom because I thought I would be sick. I wasn't, but I paced back and forth in the apartment for like 30 minutes. Then I poured myself a rocks glass full of whiskey and chugged it down. I saved the videos and then made one of my own, just a short little selfie video of me saying, "Hi, this is OP, your ex-fiance. Just wanted to say I saw the videos from the party and the wedding is off. I hope it was worth it." I'm glad I saved the videos because in less than 10 minutes they were all deleted and my phone started blowing up, but I didn't answer any calls or texts. At first, it was just my girlfriend texting saying she can explain and it's not what it looked like. Then her friends joined in, but I ignored everyone and I didn't respond. Then suddenly I got a request for a video chat, and I'll admit my curiosity got the better of me. I answered the call but didn't say anything. It was my fiance sitting in front of the camera and she looked like she had been crying and the other friends just sitting around her. I really only know maybe 4 of the friends, but I recognized a lot of the others. First, she starts apologizing, but kept saying it wasn't what it looked like. It was just a party, and the guys coming over was not planned or anything like that. She said it might have looked bad, but nothing happened. When I didn't say anything, she just kept going on with more of the same, and her friends backed her up. The more I didn't speak, the more hysterical she got. Eventually, she admitted to kissing the 2 guys, but dumped the blame on her friends, who all took responsibility for that, which surprised me a little. She said the kisses didn't mean anything, and that's all that happened. Then she seemed to remember the video of her going into the room, and she started screaming that it was just a joke and nothing happened. All the other women confirmed it was just a joke and that my fiance had walked into the room and then turned around and walked out again. This just kept going on, and they just kept repeating themselves. Eventually, everyone got quiet, and all I said was, "Is there anything else to add?" She said no, and I just ended the video call. I went onto social media and changed my relationship status to single and posted that the wedding was off, and if anyone had bought a present, they should feel free to return it. Fiance saw the post and is freaking out even more and just keeps insisting that all she did was kiss and nothing else. I sent her a text saying if I suspect that her or any of her friends lie about what happened or try to make me the bad guy, then I will post all of the videos online. Right now, no one else knows what's happening. This was a couple days ago, and everything for the wedding is canceled, and my fiance just keeps pursuing me. Any advice on what I should do from here? Update. Pretty simple. Everything has been called off and canceled. The wedding is officially not happening. I got the ring back and all of her stuff is moved out. She's staying with her parents for now. We did talk a little bit. It was mostly just her begging and apologizing and crying. She keeps insisting that all she did was kiss them. And she has never done anything like this before, and she promises it won't ever happen again. Part of me really wanted to believe her, but the problem is that this incident puts our entire relationship in doubt. I think she may be telling the truth, but again, the point is there's no way to know. If it is true that her friends pressured her to do it, then how can I believe they never did it before? We kept going around in circles because ultimately there's just no way I can be sure. She said she would do anything, including cutting off her friends, and only ever drink around me. She really blasted her friends online, saying if the party had stuck to the original plan, she'd still be getting married, so maybe she's already cut them off. All I can say is that at the moment I'm single, and I'm just going to live my life. Probably take some time to myself after getting out of a 4-year relationship. What's crazy is that a couple of her friends are also texting me just to talk. I haven't responded yet because, well, it's hard for me to trust them. Thanks again to everyone who expressed sympathy, and I hope none of you ever need to deal with anything like this in the future. All she did was kiss them? Okay, and for a lot of people, that's enough to warrant breaking things off. If plans hadn't changed, she'd still be getting married? No. If you hadn't cheated, you'd still be getting married. Maybe her friends encouraged her to cheat, but they didn't tie her down and make her do it. If someone's going to cheat, either of their own volition or because they can't stand an iota or peer pressure, they'll find a way to do it. And the fact that his ex can't take an ounce of accountability for her own behavior, he really dodged a bullet. Kissing is also cheating. Ex-fiance is only upset she got caught. Thank goodness OP broke up with her. The issue's not whether she hooked up with anyone, it's the fact she had the audacity to kiss the other guys and cross boundaries and then blame her friend for her own crappy behavior. If she can be so easily swayed now, imagine what would have happened after they got married. Thankfully, OP has broken up with her. Am I the jerk for telling my depressed brother he only has himself to blame for our parents not wanting to talk to him? I'm male, 34. My younger brother, Matt, who's 31, was engaged to this woman, Emma, who's 30, for the past year. Everyone in our family, my sister, parents, and myself, thought they were a perfect match. Emma was very polite, well-educated, had a great family whom he had met a few times, and was head over heels for Matt. Fast forward to 3 months ago, and Emma finds out that Matt cheated on her with this other woman, Cindy, who's 25. Needless to say, the marriage has been called off, and everyone has been beyond angry with Matt. Our parents haven't spoken to Matt since the fallout of what's happened, and even I have only spoken with him twice, each call lasting less than 5 minutes since then. Our sister has also not spoken with him either. This morning, I received a call from Matt saying he wanted to reconcile with the family. He mentioned how upset and depressed he's been since making the worst mistake of his life and how much he regrets his actions. I was listening up until this point, but got annoyed when he started mentioning how also Cindy wants to meet our parents and the rest of us. He told me that he left our parents a voicemail a few days ago, but they haven't responded and that he feels isolated from our family. I point blank told him that he only had himself to blame for this and that he clearly didn't think what he did was a mistake since he's still with Cindy. He said he just wanted us to give them a chance, but I told him I had to go to work and left the call while he was finishing a sentence as I was very frustrated with him. Am I the jerk? Update. For everyone suggesting that Matt found his true love in Cindy, that's questionable from my perspective. He still claims his current relationship with her is a mistake, and I'm fairly certain he has said as much to her in the past. Update 2. After reading more of the comments and some self-reflection, I've decided to reach out to my brother. It's true, he has done something terrible, and there's simply no other way of seeing it. However, despite the disappointment, I still do feel that I have a responsibility towards him at this low point in his life, especially considering that my parents and sister probably won't be reaching out to him. I called him, and it lasted around 20 minutes. I offered to meet him in person, which did seem to cheer him up a bit. I, however, made it abundantly clear to him that I have no interest in meeting Cindy. At this point, he said something that confirmed my suspicions on what he thinks of Cindy, but was still pretty surprising to hear him say. He told me that he's open to the idea of dumping Cindy if it helps build back his relationship with our parents and sister. When I asked him if he was sure about that, he said that she was small time and that she knew the risks of getting into a relationship with him, so her feelings would be on her. This whole situation just sucks, and I don't even know what to feel or think about it anymore. Kinda hard for it to be the worst mistake of his life when he's currently dating part of the mistake. Not the jerk. So, I'm probably gonna get downvoted here, but you're the jerk and so are your parents. Matt made his bed when it comes to Emma, and their relationship ending is the result of that. And yeah, you're valid to be angry with him over that. But it's been 3 months and you're still cutting him off? Your own relative? You're choosing his ex's side over your own brother? Yes, he's horrible for what he did, and yes, you're valid for being angry with him, but what he did is ultimately between him and Emma. And if he's actually depressed because of this, you don't know what he might end up doing if you guys don't even talk to him. Reddit is going to downvote me for this because they view all cheaters as black and white, so I'm going to reiterate, cheating is never okay. It's never something that should be excused within the relationship. But you and your parents were not within his relationship with Emma, and the fact that you're all cutting him off like this tells me you have a huge issue with boundaries, and you and your family were too involved in his previous relationship. I have never cheated, nor will I ever cheat. I've been cheated on, and it sucks. But I never once expected my ex's family to choose my side over his. Never. That's so weird to me. You do you, but he didn't cheat on you or your parents, and you're acting like he did is weird. Daughter's boyfriend's parents are threatening to sue us for letting him live with us. Our daughter, who's 20, has been dating her boyfriend, who's 19, for about 8 months. Due to problems at home and extremely controlling parents, we invited him to stay with us when he had a fight with them. We attempted to mediate for the sake of both of them. Now his parents are accusing us of interference in a verbal contract they say they have with their son to follow for a specific career path. Their son says the only thing he agreed to was paying them back the money they borrowed for school. The loan is in his name. We're giving him a place to stay with no expectations. We don't profit off of it in any way. We live in Ohio. They laughably claim they were serving us a cease and desist order in a Dunkin' Donuts when we were trying to mediate. This consisted of them handing us a printed piece of paper that looks like it came off Google somewhere. No attorney names, etc. Apparently, the mom has tried this tactic with other people and it has been successful. Does any of this sound like it could have merit? Any additional steps to take? We're currently waiting to see if they actually serve us with real papers before contacting an attorney. We're taking the following steps. Filed change of address. Opened his own bank account that they're not aware of. Both of his parents are out of work on disability of some sort. Update. Thank you for all the reassurance and recommendations. We've ordered his birth certificate, locked down his credit, and are working on getting things replaced. Change of address was filed, and we're hoping it goes into effect before his driver's license arrives. His new cell phone is en route, and we will be returning his old one. Update. Our daughter's boyfriend has now been living with us for a month. He has locked his credit, has obtained his social security card, driver's license, and birth certificate. He started a job 3 weeks ago, working full-time, making $20 an hour. To me, it's not the greatest job in the world. Very heavy physical labor, but he seems to enjoy it, and that's what's important. He got his first paycheck and was so excited to be able to purchase things around the house. We took him to move the rest of his stuff out. His parents knew we were coming and had strategically moved all of their cars so that we couldn't park in their driveway. We made a point in parking in front of a neighbor's house so they couldn't complain about it, and I could almost see his father stomping his foot like a 2-year-old who didn't get a treat. Since then, things have been quiet. My wife isn't loving my new friend group. My wife and I have been together for almost 20 years. We met in university, and since we both moved for school, we always had the same group of friends. As we got older, this naturally transitioned to us mostly having couple friends. Our marriage is pretty solid. We still love each other very much, and there's been no hints of infidelity, but I can't say we haven't become a bit set in our ways. A few years back, I made some big changes to my health and fitness and started running regularly. My wife was generally supportive, but at times I could tell she was a bit put off when it got in the way of something she wanted to do. About 6 months ago, I joined a running group. We meet on Thursday nights for a run and then get drinks after. It's a mixed group with age ranges from 28 to 42 and various relationship statuses. I really get along with these folks and have become friends with a number of them. This means I generally stay out later on Thursdays and have hung out with them on separate occasions as well. It's been amazing to meet a new group of friends at my age, and they share a lot of interests with me that my wife just doesn't like. For instance, we did a weekend kayaking trip recently, which my wife would absolutely not have been on board for. My wife acts like she's cool with me hanging out with these folks, but I can tell she doesn't love it. I get it. I'm suddenly staying out late and spending weekends away with a bunch of people she doesn't know, and that includes some younger single women. That said, I'm absolutely open about everything, and there's nothing funny going on. I'm not sure it's even jealousy of that sort, but rather that she'd rather I just be home and available at all times in case she wants or needs something from me. She started acting passive-aggressive about anything that involves plans with the group. We have a shared calendar, and if something's going on and we have nothing planned, I'll add into it. Aside from Thursday nights, these events really only happen every few weeks. If we have other plans pop up, it's like she intentionally tries to plan over these events rather than just saying we're busy and looking for another free night. Recently, she got a bit upset with me for going to my regular running night after she returned from a work trip. She told me repeatedly that she was exhausted and was going to bed early, so I thought it would be fine, but then got some passive-aggressive texts, so I cut out early and went home to spend time with her. We then sat on our phones, not talking, with the TV on for 45 minutes before she went to bed. I tried including her in some of my activities in the past, but she'll mostly just complain and then make excuses to not do them again. She doesn't have a separate friend group of her own, but is very close with a lot of her colleagues, and anytime she goes to a work event, which are pretty frequent, I can count on her not answering her phone and coming home pretty drunk very late at night. It doesn't upset me at all, and I trust her. For my part, I will admit that I selfishly don't really want to involve her in my friend group at this point. They're new friendships, and I don't want to change the dynamic. I also know that she won't have a lot in common with these folks. If I'm honest, I also worry a little bit about her sabotaging things. I don't really know how to proceed at this point. I really don't want to give up my new friends, but I don't know how to work through it with my wife. Update. Laid my cards on the table and just told my wife that I posted here. We're now laughing and bonding in front of a campfire, talking about how I'm a cheating jerk, she's a codependent mess, and our marriage is on the verge of collapse. We also talked things through, and she admitted she's feeling a bit neglected and that it might be coming out as passive aggression because she doesn't mean for it to. I assured her she's my ride or die and told her I'd make sure she felt like my #1 priority in the future. I read her some of the posts discussing the single young women, and she laughed hard enough to spit out some wine. She also said she understood my reasons for not wanting to invite her out with folks immediately, but trusted we'd get there soon enough. Thanks to everyone who asked insightful questions and gave practical advice. To the people who made snap judgments and jumped to name-calling, thanks for the rest of tonight's entertainment. Am I the jerk for not canceling a boys' trip upon my wife's request? So here's the backstory. Me, 33 male, and my wife, 32 female, have a 1-year-old son. Back when he was 5 months old, my friends and I began planning an annual golf trip that would take place 6 months later. As soon as we had tentative dates and location, I asked my wife if it was okay to go. She gave me approval and I began to plan. I found an Airbnb and booked flights. Fast forward to 5 months later, a couple of weeks before the trip. Our son was in the midst of a sleep regression and he was waking up several times each night. My wife still naturally fed him, and he would not accept me when he'd wake up upset. As a result, she was left doing all of the tending to him during the nights. One day, she approached me and said she didn't want me to go anywhere and that I needed to stay home because she was afraid it would be too much for her alone. I told her that I understood why she was anxious about it, but she had agreed to me going already, and I'd committed about $1,000 to this, had the Airbnb in my name for all 12 of us. This evolved into an argument, and she was very mad that I would not change my mind. I told her that I'd gladly return the favor on a trip if she wanted to plan one, and encouraged her to do so. During my trip, she sent me texts and called me, very upset. When I returned home, we had another argument about it. We've since reconciled, but I know her stance on it has not changed, nor has mine. Am I the jerk? Edit. I'd been asked to comment on length of trip and if I coordinated help for her before I left. I did coordinate help, but she wasn't comfortable with someone else watching him at that point. The trip was 2 days and 3 nights. Not the jerk. Does she not have family nearby? Do you not have family nearby? Did you take all of the other people she knows on the trip with you? She had plenty of notice to even arrange an out-of-town visit for help at this point where your kid started his sleep regression. Wasting that amount of money is insane to me, and seeing the number of "you're the jerk" votes in this thread is staggering. I'm a mom, and I flat out sent her father on a trip while she was in sleep regression because having him around, being effectively useless since she only wanted me, made everything approximately 100 times harder emotionally and mentally. I hired my mother to house sit and dog sit for a week, and I returned to my house in shambles. Last week, my wife and I traveled to a music festival for about 5 to 6 days. I hired my mom, she needed the money, I needed a dog sitter, to take care of things while we were away for an agreed upon price. We cleaned the house prior to leaving, left her with strict instructions for what to do with our Great Dane, stocked the fridge, wrote the Wi-Fi and desktop passwords down for her, and prepaid her so she'd have some money. Fast forward to yesterday, we arrived to find lots of things had been done to our home, and it sent me into a fit. My wife and I are 30-somethings who just bought our very first house together, and it was bought, remodeled, and to our likings. The list is as follows. Every wall in the house had been painted with a color that did not match our normal paint scheme. The job was also incomplete and patchy in most areas. The previous paint was totally fine and only 7 months old. Missing electrical outlet covers, still don't know why. Over 100 cigarette butts in my rose-potted plant out front. Items missing and moved. Pictures hung and holes in the walls. We did not intend on hanging anything yet until we decided on what we wanted to hang. A shop light was ran over the kitchen table and tacked to the wall. 6-foot ladder laid on vinyl records, destroying 3 of them in the process. Spare house key made by my mom's boyfriend. Now I feel like I must change my locks. Indoor dog bed thrown in the mud. Duct tape found over the motion detectors and Ring doorbell. Not to mention the whole reason I needed her in the first place, the dog. He'd been left out back, seemingly the entire time. He sleeps indoors and comes in frequently for heat breaks, barely fed, and his dog bed is caked in mud and rain, and I feel it is necessary to toss it in the garbage now. Naturally, I lost my head and my cool. I immediately started yelling about the fact that this is not their home. It was not okay for them to treat our home like it was theirs, doing whatever flight or fancy entered their brains. I almost suspect they could have been on something. That's the only thing I can rationalize their thought processes with. The entire time, my mother refused to accept responsibility for their actions, began to cry, and called me ungrateful. I feel like I'm being gaslit by my own mother for being upset. Our relationship is now tarnished even further than it was, and my wife doesn't want her back here. The scenario has played in my mind countless times, and I feel completely awful about yelling at her, but it's the complete lack of accepting responsibility on her part that has me fuming, on top of acting like nothing was even amiss. Am I the jerk here, or was I justified in my right to be upset? Update. Have completely ghosted my mom and blocked her cell phone number. I've changed the locks and began the process of fixing my home out of pocket. My dog is back to his chipper self and is scheduled for a vet visit tomorrow. I really appreciate everyone's support just poring over this post. I will reply as much as possible. Thanks. Not the jerk. I'd press charges. You can sue her, but unless she has money or assets of some kind, you probably won't get much. OP. Thought about it, couldn't bring myself to sue my mother. And even if I could, the situation is, as you'd imagine. She's broke with no assets other than a car. Yeah, I figured. May still be a good idea to press charges. Maybe talk to your homeowner's insurance and see if you have any way to recoup some money from damages. Always worth a shot. Not the jerk, but this is really bad. Like, call the police bad. I wonder, was it a complete surprise to you that your mom acted like this? She has no relevant history? Because in that case, I would want mom evaluated for neurological problems. If not, if you should have suspected this might happen, you owe your partner an enormous apology, and you must swear that finally the blinders are off and you are no longer in denial. Get your locks changed pronto. Time to tell mom she cannot be part of your life as long as she isn't sober. Well, what would you do in this situation? Would you sue your mom or not? Please let us know.
Suing would be an understatement for what I would do.
Insane Karen gets rid of my cat, gets taught a lesson. I'm at the vet's waiting room with my cat as I'm writing this. So let me share a bit of my situation. I'm a 35-year-old woman, and I've been with my 45-year-old fiance for 3 years. He has 2 kids, a 22-year-old daughter who's a lovely girl, and another daughter who's 19. For the sake of this post, we'll call her Kim. Kim has always had a bad attitude, especially towards me. Now, before anyone assumes anything, my fiance was already divorced 2 years before we met, and his ex is a nice person whom I get along with very well. So there's no animosity from her end either. Currently, Kim is 3 months pregnant and living with us because we have more space to accommodate her and the baby. The baby daddy stays over sometimes, but he's juggling 2 jobs and studies, so I end up taking care of Kim most of the time. Today, the main issue arose when Kim's boyfriend came over. My fiance suggested we give them some privacy and go for a walk. When I returned home after a couple of hours, I noticed my cat was missing. Kim has never liked my cat and even wanted me to get rid of him. She claimed he ran out the door, but I knew that wasn't true. Whiskey, my elderly cat, wouldn't venture outside on his own. I checked the security camera and, as expected, I saw Kim throwing Whiskey out to run him off. I was devastated and couldn't hold back my emotions. I confronted Kim and told her she had 1 hour to find my cat, or I'd throw out all of her belongings in the dumpster and I would no longer be taking care of her. She retorted, saying she wasn't going to search for my stupid cat and asked me to back off, citing her pregnancy. My fiance tried to intervene and asked me to calm down, saying we would look for the cat together. I refused, determined to find my cat alone, and made it clear that if I returned and Kim was still there, I'd leave, and my fiance could go with her too, because I was fed up with dealing with his difficult daughter. I didn't wait for their response, and although I could hear her crying, I went on to search for Whiskey. Fortunately, I found him hiding in some bushes after what felt like an eternity. When I returned home, they were both in the living room. My fiance wanted to talk, but he insisted that I owed Kim an apology. I refused and told him to go to heck while demanding Kim start packing her things. As far as I know, she's currently staying with her boyfriend's family, and my fiance isn't speaking to me. Update. Surprisingly, my now ex-fiance's oldest daughter, whom I'll call Kate, reached out to me to hear my side of the story. She's an animal lover like myself and sensed something was off. My ex-fiance had spun a story about me having a breakdown over the cat and going off on Kim for not trying to catch him due to her condition. Kate is sharp and she knows her sister well, so she called Kim to get her side of the story. Kim was more honest with Kate, admitting that she and her dad had planned to get rid of my cat. Her baby daddy refused to do it, leading to an argument, and Kim lazily kicked Whiskey out of the yard. Kate also told me that Kim has been speaking negatively about me and Whiskey, and she fears that Kim might take some revenge on him in the future. After hearing all this, I decided to listen to Kate, my friends, the vet's assistant, and everyone here. I called off the wedding, which was just a few weeks away, and I broke up with my ex-fiance via text. Frankly, I don't care if it's immature or cruel. I told him I'd pack up his stuff for him to collect in a few days. The begging and empty promises have already started, but I'm determined to stand my ground. I'm done being an ATM and a slave for my ex-fiance and his spoiled daughter Kim. As for Whiskey, he's doing fine. He was a bit shaken up by the incident, but he's currently curled up in my lap, refusing to move. Not the jerk. As a cat owner, I salute you. I mean, yeah, you might lose the relationship over this, but from the sounds of it, if this doesn't do it, something else likely will. Not the jerk. Pregnancy hormones do not cause you to treat pets like this. That's just vicious entitlement and meanness. You do not owe her an apology, She should be begging for your forgiveness, and so should your ex. I'm getting married in 2 weeks, and I just found out my fiance has been helping her sister hide her secret affair. My fiance, Sarah, who's 28, and me, 34 male, have known each other for about 6 years, engaged for 1. Our wedding is scheduled to take place in just 2 weeks, and I just witnessed something that is making me feel like I'm making the biggest mistake of my life. Tonight, Sarah and I were taking a rare opportunity to relax at home. Sarah was in the kitchen making dinner while I was out back working on one of my projects. We live on acreage, and I'm building a fire pit in the backyard that we're planning on using this fall. Anyway, as you do when you're doing heavy labor, I get thirsty and come back to the house to get a drink, where I hear Sarah at the counter preparing dinner and talking on speakerphone. I recognize the voice instantly as my brother-in-law, Marty. Now, this is where my brain gets totally twisted. Marty asks Sarah where her sister Evelyn is at. He says he's been trying to get in contact with her and she's not answering texts, and I hear Sarah say to him, "She just left here. She should be home in half an hour or so." It should be noted that Evelyn is Marty's wife of 5 years. I have to admit that I didn't immediately register what she had just said, because I went into the kitchen and grabbed a glass and asked Sarah, "What was that all about?" And she responds with, "Marty was looking for Evie." I see her texting and I ask her, "What are you doing?" And she says, "I'm texting Evie that Marty was looking for her." Anyway, I pour myself a drink, sit down, have a sip, and then finally my brain starts to work. First off, I heard Sarah tell Marty that Evelyn was here. Evelyn was not here, and the last time we saw her was yesterday when she came over to work on some last-minute wedding decorations with Sarah. Secondly, why is she texting Evelyn and expecting a response when I distinctly heard Marty say that Evelyn wasn't answering texts? Lastly, why would she tell Marty that Evelyn should be back in 30 minutes unless she either knows where she is, then why did she lie? Or she's right now in front of me texting her, telling her to get home quickly. The only conclusion that I came up with is that Sarah is lying to Marty about the whereabouts of her sister, Marty's wife, and is probably warning Evie that Marty will expect her home in half an hour. I then spent probably the next 5 hours concocting various explanations for this behavior, some decent, some downright horrible, and playing them back in my head. I wanted really badly to ask Sarah about this, but at the same time, if what I think is going on, then I doubted I'd get a straight answer. Which brings me to about an hour ago. I woke up around 1 a.m. to use the bathroom, and I couldn't resist the urge to check Sarah's phone. We both know each other's pins, so this wasn't a difficult thing to do. Anyway, I grabbed the phone, retreated to the bathroom, and unlocked it, and yup, it was exactly what I was afraid of, and probably what most of you were expecting. Sarah's sister Evelyn has been having an affair for about 6 months with a coworker, and Sarah has been helping Evelyn to cover it up for almost that entire time. There are literally hundreds of texts between them discussing it, discussing the coworker, discussing her hooking up with him, really embarrassing things about my brother-in-law, and probably uncharitable. Just stuff that makes my stomach churn. And here's my soon-to-be wife going along with all of it without batting an eye. I took some screenshots of the entire thread, put the phone back where I found it, and then retreated to my home office to find myself here typing it all out on Reddit, simply so I can avoid the primal scream that wants to come out of my mouth right now. I'm totally done for, Reddit. I cannot marry Sarah. I just can't do it. I can't think of any reasonable excuse she could offer me about assisting her sister in this affair and victimizing not only Marty, but their family as well. On the other hand, myself, my family, Sarah, and her family have all sunk an enormous amount of money into a wedding that's supposed to happen in 2 weeks. There's no way that we're getting any of that money back. On top of that, I feel like an absolute fool. Like, how did I not know this woman was like this? And what am I going to do? I can't marry her. I just can't. However, I still want to. She's beautiful and fun and kind, and I thought we had a bright future ahead of us. She's never done anything wrong to me, but I just can't unsee this now. It's like a giant stain on an otherwise beautiful picture. I just don't know how I got into this, and I'm just dreading doing what I know I need to do. I feel like I want to throw up or break something. Edit. Guys, you don't need to convince me to not marry Sarah. That's obvious. The wedding is off. I'm just trying to figure out my next steps and work up the nerve to do it. There's an incredible amount of pressure on me from the expectations of everyone, but I'm not going to buckle under it. I'm not relishing having to deal with the fallout, and I'm more than a little angry that I'm in this situation. Edit 2. It's 5 a.m. I have work in 3 hours, and I'm running off a couple hours of sleep. I'm gonna take a shower and head into work early to avoid Sarah and stew on this. I got to work around 7. No one was in the office, so I decided to start pulling off the band-aid and I called my brother. He lives in Australia, so he was up after having just put his kids to sleep. It was hard breaking the news to him about this because I know he has laid out a huge amount of money for flights for him and his family to come to the wedding. But to his credit, as an older brother, he didn't mention it even once and just backed me up. He made a great point too. He said, I'm kind of paraphrasing here, "You work in a job where you have to deal with liars and scammers day in and day out. I don't blame you for wanting to have somewhere to go where that's not a concern." He was totally right about that, and I get now why I'm reacting so strongly to Sarah's participation in this deceit. He also had a great idea. He was going to take his family down to Florida to do some sightseeing and visit the parks. Well, now the kids will be accompanied by their uncle as well. It should be easy since we were going to honeymoon there as well, and we were planning on meeting them for a bit anyway. I'll just rebook everything to be closer to him and his family, and I'll offer Sarah's ticket to either my sister or another family member. Edit 5. Got to Marty's house a little after 10 a.m. He had just put his daughter down for a nap, and we had a long, frankly brutal talk in the kitchen. Basically, he suspected this for a couple of months now, but Evelyn has been very good at covering her tracks, obviously with the assistance of Sarah and a couple of their mutual friends. I unfortunately do not have all 6 months of the text messages, just a couple dozen screenshots I sent to myself from Sarah's phone. But I gave him what I have and offered to help him however I could. I work in insurance, specializing in workers' compensation fraud, so I know a few things and a few people. Anyway, I'm now working from my laptop in his kitchen, trying to salvage whatever I can. I'm going to have to talk to Sarah this evening and get the word out as fast as I can to my friends and family that I know won't do Marty over. So far, I managed to rebook most of the honeymoon. Also, I do not hate Sarah. I don't approve of what she did. I frankly find it repulsive, and I'm shocked by uncovering how two-faced she can be and how she treats people, but I don't hate her. I'm just incredibly sad about everything, and the "I'm done for" part of my post is really the short time frame I have to work under. Basically, our relationship is in a state where I cannot get married to her. Update. Marty asked for my help in finding out who the other guy was that Evelyn was cheating on him with. All we had to go on was a name. Let's call him Jake. The first thing I did was basically just go through LinkedIn trying to find the guy through Evelyn's connections, but that brought up nothing, which I thought was strange. Marty had told me that Evelyn was supposed to go out for drinks tonight after work, and that she said she wouldn't be home until around 9 or 10. He didn't have to tell me what he suspected, since I pretty much understood right away. I told him that I would help him, but he needed to come with me. I then contacted my buddy Mark, explained the situation to him, and had him agree to meet us later in the day. The first thing we did was drive over to Marty's parents' house so they could watch their granddaughter. I don't know what Marty told them as I waited in the car. After that, we went to Evelyn's place of work. It's one of those large commercial strip malls. We drove around until we found Evelyn's car, and then I had Marty unlock it with a second set of keys. I then gave Marty a voice-activated recorder and a GPS tracker to place in the car. Once we were done with that, we left, parked a bit down the street, and waited for my friend to arrive and for Evelyn to leave the business. Mark shows up about 20 minutes later, hops in the car with us, and around an hour later, Evelyn comes out of her office with two of her girlfriends and a tall, younger-looking man with sandy blonde hair. They're obviously holding hands, and I'm like, dang, Evelyn, you're making it too easy for me. I take a couple of pictures from the car and then wait for Evelyn to leave in hers, and I start tracking her. At first, I thought she might go right to a hotel or something, but she didn't. Instead, she drove to a reasonably nice bar and grill in a nice section of town and parked on the street. I drove by her as she was getting out of her car and entering the establishment, and then found my own parking spot and went over the plan. First, we sent Mark in, since no one knew him. He had basically two jobs: to try and get any compromising pictures he could of Evelyn and Jake, and second, to be my alibi. Marty and I waited in the car for around 20 minutes until I got the first in the series of text messages from Mark. They were pictures of Evelyn and Jake making out in front of their two female coworkers. Marty's suspicions were right. They had been helping Evelyn hide the affair from him. He was obviously very upset and angry. Evidently, one of the coworkers is married, and as a couple, they are good friends with Marty and Evelyn. Both of them even have kids around the same age. I asked Marty if that's enough for him, but he says he still really wants to know who the guy is. I try to tell him that we can find out later, but he's practically begging me at this point, so I tell him to wait, text Mark that I'm coming in, and then enter the bar myself. First thing I see is Evelyn and her crew laughing and drinking at one of those tall round tables. I stop for a moment, pretend to be surprised, and then call out to Evelyn. "Evelyn, hi, what are you doing here?" She's obviously shocked to see me, and everyone around her tenses up immediately. Evelyn quickly introduces me as her sister's fiance and says that we're getting married in 2 weeks. There are a lot of congratulations from everyone. I thank them and then stick out my hand to the blonde guy and introduce myself with my full name, hoping that he'll respond in kind. He does, and I'm a bit taken aback. He's not named Jake. I introduce myself to everyone else and then tell Evelyn that I'm here to meet a coworker. I wave to Mark and then excuse myself. Once I get over to Mark, I tell him the guy's name and we both whip out our phones and go to work. It doesn't take long for us to find him. He's got social media profiles and a couple of court case judgments against him. Everything sort of falls into place when we find out that Jake is his middle name. At this point, I'm basically just grateful that Evelyn isn't cheating on Marty with 2 different coworkers. Turns out that Jake is 26, married, and they have a 1-year-old. This just keeps getting better. Anyway, I text Marty the guy's name, and I decide I want to push my luck and tell him to wait a few more minutes. Basically, I'm playing babysitter here at the bar. I'm totally visible to Evelyn and her crew, and I'm happy to know that my presence is ruining their night. I let this go on for about 10 minutes, and then tell Marty to text Evelyn that he's spending the night at his parents' house with their daughter. It doesn't take long after that until I catch Evelyn taking out her phone, showing it to Jake, and then everyone deciding to pack up. Evelyn comes over to me, says goodnight, and asks me if Sarah and I want to come over for dinner this weekend. I smile and say that sounds like a great idea, and wish her and her coworkers a good night. Mark and I wait for them to leave, then pay our bill and hurry back to Marty. There's a bit of hesitation here because we don't know exactly what Evelyn was going to do. We thought she might have already booked a hotel room and was heading there, which would have made things more complicated. But it turns out that tonight was probably meant to be just drinks at the bar, and it wasn't until Marty decided to spend the night at his parents' house that it turned into something more. Evelyn made a beeline for home, and we followed behind her way out of sight and parked down the street. It didn't take long after that until another car pulled up into Marty's driveway and we saw Jake get out, go up to the door, knock, and be greeted by Evelyn. Then they went inside together. Now at this point, it's about 7:30 and I have my own stuff to do tonight, and I think that as a friend, I've pretty much done everything I can for Marty and he can handle the rest himself. I mean, I feel bad for the guy definitely, but I don't want to get any more involved in this drama than I already am, and being the wingman for him while he confronts his cheating wife is a bit much for me considering my situation. Marty says it's fine, that he'll do the rest of it himself. Guess he's more of a man than you thought, Evelyn. He goes to Evelyn's car, retrieves my gear, and we bid each other goodbye. That was almost 2 hours ago. I did get one text message from Marty saying it was done and he was going to his parents' house for real this time, but my phone hasn't been blowing up, so I don't know what's been going on with Evelyn, and I've been at Mark's since then. I think that basically concludes my part in Marty's story. If he was smart and listened to my advice, he was recording with his phone when he entered the house. I'll find out later. Anyway, my biggest priority now is to head home and tell Sarah that the wedding is off. She's almost 100% going to take it badly. There's no way she won't. But like I said, I just can't get married to her right now. I don't know what the future holds for us or if we'll be done with each other or not, but definitely we're not getting married anytime soon. Also, for people who keep saying, why didn't you talk to her first? Why didn't you confront her? I have to say, are you people stupid? She stone cold lied in front of me to her brother-in-law that she had known for about 10 years and purportedly thinks he is a really great husband and father. Maybe you're naive enough to think that someone can lie that coldly to someone they are supposed to care about and then tell you the truth, but I'm not wired that way. Until that moment, I never had a cause to ever second-guess Sarah or not trust her, but she was literally untrustworthy in front of my face, and I'm supposed to let it slide or expect her to be honest with me? I guess you don't know what it's like to have your entire view of someone shift in an instant. It's disorienting and frankly a bit panic-inducing. It would have been so easy for her to lie to me and then delete those messages, and if she had done that, I never would have read the horrible things she said, never seen how she can be so two-faced, and never realized how little I actually knew her. I caught my future mother-in-law trying on my wedding dress. My fiance allowed her to do this without even asking me first. So I'm getting married to my fiance soon. I bought my wedding dress weeks ago. My future mother-in-law kept pestering me about trying it on, but I firmly refused. I finally shut it down after she offered me $100 to let her try it on. Her reasoning for persisting so much? She says it's because of her love for wedding dresses and her obsession with them. Fast forward to yesterday. I came home from work early and I found my fiance at home. He freaked out after seeing me and tried to prevent me from going into my room while trying to text somebody on his phone. I opened the door and I was shocked to see his mom standing there wearing my wedding dress. I instantly pulled out my phone and took a photo of her. She and my fiance freaked out after I told her that she needed to pay me for a new dress in 3 days or else I'll show the whole family the photo. She started crying and then left, and my fiance blew up at me saying I can't be serious and that I overreacted because his mom just wanted to try the dress on, no harm done. But I refused to listen to him because in my opinion, the dress should only be worn by the bride and the bride only. Quite frankly, I felt disgusted looking at the dress again. I don't want it anymore. And so I think it's only fair that she pays me after she ruined it for me. He yelled at me and told me to wake up and stop treating his mom like this as if she was an enemy. We had a fight after he failed to get me to back down, and he's been staying with his mom since then. I felt awful, but I spent $3,000 on this dress and I worked hard to get it. I can't stop looking at it, but people in my family think I'm escalating things and risking my relationship with not only future mother-in-law, but my fiance as well. Am I the jerk? Update. My fiance called and offered to pay for the dress himself so we can end the conflict, but he wants me to hand him my phone so he can delete the photo himself, swear that I don't have any copies to use against his mom later, apologize to his mom, and lastly, he asked that I quit his family group chat and log out of Facebook for at least a month. I haven't responded yet. P.S. He called with this offer and conditions hours ago, but I didn't want to include this in the post, but now I did. Also, I'm not sure if I'll agree because I don't want him to pay for it. I want his mom to pay for it, the one who wore it. Not being vicious, but trying to hold her accountable. Not the jerk. But are you sure you want to marry this guy? He stood guard outside so that his mother could try on your wedding dress. Do you think he will ever stand up against her for you? Not the jerk. But the problem isn't just your future mother-in-law, it's your fiance. He let her in. He was going to lie and hide this from you that she tried it on. He's defending her actions. He disrespected your belongings. He didn't care about your feelings and still doesn't. He has shown he doesn't care about your boundaries. He decided his mother wanted to try it on, and that's more important than your feelings, and that won't go away when you're married. Personally, my petty self would call off the engagement, and the announcement of that would be the picture of his mom in my wedding dress stating, "Unfortunately, I cannot marry him. It appears he's already emotionally committed to his mother." At the bare minimum, you should postpone until he can respect your boundaries. My wife always gets sick when I take vacation. We're both 38. She always gets sick when I take vacation from work. She's a stay-at-home mom with lots of freedom. If she's having an off day, I encourage her that laundry, etc. can wait. I work 40+ hours a week at a salary job and it's high stress. It's not unusual to get calls after hours or work on Saturday. I'm active with the kids and also help with the house. When I take vacation from work, it's scheduled 30+ days in advance. Most of the time, it's a staycation, relax at home. She's well aware of the dates. It never fails. My vacation arrives and she's either sick or not feeling well, like sore back. My plans get canceled, like sleeping in or a morning fishing trip. She feels bad for feeling bad, usually cries and spends the whole time in bed. This isn't normal. How do I deal with this? I've tried to discuss it in the past, but it just turns into her crying. This round, I get 2 days off, and suddenly her back hurts bad enough she can barely walk. She claimed that she cleaned all day, but the kids said she basically just played a computer game. Help. Update. The plan is to split my vacation with her. The first half hers, the second mine. It's very possible that she is not intentionally being sick, but her body knows she can finally slow down and rest. We will also be going to marriage counseling whether she wants to or not. Update 2. To clarify, by vacation, I mean time off from work. During my vacation, we split the time between 1 day for me and 1 day for her. 2 days with a sitter for us to enjoy together, and the rest is spent hanging out as a family. I help her with the kids and house before and after work. I also work from home some and help during those days too. It's not uncommon for her to leave the kids with me and go have lunch with a friend or visit the park. I'm getting a ton of comments saying I'm obviously a horrible partner and dad. I should give her more time. I love her and I'm doing everything I can and asking for advice. If this is how you feel, go away and take your anger out on someone else. Most partners don't do half of what I do. I'm going to schedule couples counseling and have an open conversation about it. I'll go even if she doesn't. This was suggested by a counselor. All the hateful comments are funny. Good reminders that people on the internet aren't afraid to be rude. Most of the people seem to be stay-at-home moms whose husbands are also on vacation. Obviously, this is a bigger issue you two will have to work out, but in the meantime, try hiring a sitter in advance on your days off, or arrange for family to come stay, or for her and the kids to go stay with family. Stock the house with cold medicine, Pepto-Bismol, tissues, cold packs, and chicken soup. If and when she gets sick, she'll be set. Obligatory, I'm not a therapist or mental health care professional. When I go weeks on end, very stressed about a project at work, Once the project is done, I get sick. I assume it's my body finally relaxing on adrenaline production, but have no scientific evidence to back that up. It's possible your wife's pain is very real and is just getting released when you're home because she feels like she can relax a bit then. Therapy and anxiety medication has significantly helped me cut down on this happening. Best of luck to you. If a man did this to his wife, we'd all be screaming weaponized incompetence, which it absolutely is. This isn't okay, and you're right to be mad. She is definitely manipulating you. I don't know why it's important to her that you spend your days off taking care of her, but that's something the two of you definitely need to talk about. You say that you work a lot. Is there a chance your wife is really desperate to reconnect with you, and this is the only way that she's figured out how to do it? I'm not saying it's a good or healthy way to go about it at all, but this might be your wife trying in a very clumsy way to communicate she'd appreciate you being around your family more. Also, seeing a lot of interesting assumptions in the comments. I'm not male, my dudes. Am I the jerk for saying again after my sister announced that she's pregnant with twins? I'm 21, female. My sister, who's 32, has been married to her husband, who's 33, for 8 years. They already have 6 kids total, the last one born 5 months ago. Yesterday, my sister had announced that she's 3 months pregnant with twins, and while everyone was congratulating her, I said out loud, "Oh my goodness, again? Can't your stupid husband leave you alone?" I didn't mean to say it out loud, but it slipped out, and my sister looked at me angrily and literally dragged me into another room and asked, "Why did you say that?" I told her that she and her husband have been pregnant every year for the last 8 years and that she needs to take a break. I was worried about her having so many babies in such a short time, and I didn't want anything bad to happen to her. She then said, "How about you leave us alone and worry about your own stuff? This is my life, so back off." My mother told me that I should apologize for being rude, but I told her that I won't apologize for showing concern. But now I just can't help but think that maybe I was a jerk and sticking my nose in other people's business. I was just worried, but maybe I was being a jerk. Am I the jerk? Edit. Yes, I do babysit my sister's kids sometimes, and all 6 of them at the same time whenever they need me if I'm available. They pay me $30 to $50 an hour, but their kids are pretty destructive and they don't respect other adults like they're supposed to, so it's a full chore watching after them. I'm aware that the stupid husband comment was inappropriate, but I have almost no filter, and my stupid mouth says things before my brain can stop it. Update. I apologized to my sister for insulting her husband and making that rude comment, but I told her that I'm still worried about her having so many kids back to back, and I'm just concerned in general about her health and well-being. She actually forgave me, and she said it's because 1, I'm her younger sister, 2, she knows about my problem with keeping my thoughts to myself and that I'm working on myself, and 3, she knows that I'm concerned for her and she appreciates it, but she assured me that she's fine and said that this pregnancy wasn't planned and her husband plans on having a vasectomy because they both want this pregnancy to be the last. For those asking in the comments how they can afford to have these many kids, he runs a very successful business and she's still co-partner with her best friend in a company that they both started before she got married. How she manages to juggle being a full-time mom and work there is beyond me, but she does. That's why I babysit sometimes when the nanny isn't available 24/7. Her husband was the one who initially wanted a big family, and my sister just went along with the idea. But that's their business. You're the jerk, but it needed to be said. You're a good jerk. In my opinion, not the jerk. That's too many kids to give adequate care to, and being pregnant consecutively for that long is really hard on someone's body and mental health, whether they want to admit it or not. Not the jerk. We as a society need to move away from this idea that parents are above reproach. That's too many kids to adequately care for in today's society. You could have been more tactful, but someone needs to think about the well-being of her kids here. Am I the jerk for telling my boyfriend that I don't want to take care of his son anymore? My boyfriend, who's 30, has a son who's 6. When I first got with my boyfriend, his son was only 2 at the time. His mother didn't want me to be involved in the care of their kid, and she and I have never really seen eye to eye. In the beginning, it went really well, and his son was here every other week. But the older he got, the less time he was with his mom, and he's with us 100% of the time now since his mom was arrested a year ago. In the beginning, we divided the chores and childcare equally. 4 months ago, my boyfriend got an opportunity to work on 3 projects, which could lead him to a big promotion. He's always working late, either from home or in the office. I've been doing all the chores and childcare since then. I cook, clean, get his son ready in the morning, and drop him off at daycare. The only thing my boyfriend has to do is get his son ready for bed. I told him last Friday that from Monday on, I won't be doing the childcare anymore. He got angry. He said we're a family and we need to support each other. He told me he needed me right now and that I just needed to be patient. I replied saying that this is his son and he needs to do the majority of the childcare. I've been doing all of it and it's not fair since he's the father. He then went into the other room, got his son, and he said, "Mommy says she doesn't want to take care of you anymore," while pointing at me. I said not to call me that because I'm not his mother, and his son started crying. I of course comforted and apologized to his son because it wasn't my intention to upset him. My boyfriend is still mad and has been taking care of his son, but he won't speak to me. I didn't think this was unreasonable. He's the parent and needs to do more of the childcare. And also, the mom doesn't even want me to be involved in the kid's life, so I'm already overstepping her wishes. My sister is on his side and says I'm at fault since he and I are a family now, and he needs my support, and that the mother's wishes don't matter at all right now. Like, I don't think this was at all unreasonable, but I'm not sure if I was unreasonable here. Am I the jerk? I see a lot of you asking if I work. I do. I'm giving at-home care to the elderly and disabled. I've lowered the number of hours that I work to 20 to 28 hours per week. How demanding my work is truly depends on the day and which client I have on my schedule. Sometimes I have clients on my schedule that don't require a lot of time and I'm finished by noon, and the other times I have to work until 8 p.m. It really varies per day. Not the jerk. Don't hide behind what the mom would want. Whether you're the stepmom or not is irrelevant here. He's dumping all of this on you, and that's unfair, whether you're stepmom, biological, or whatever. If that's not the life you want, you need to break up and leave, because he's obviously benefiting from you providing full-time childcare and domestic labor and won't want to give it up because it has value, and he's extracting that value from you and doesn't want to start paying someone to do what you do for free. This relationship is over. If you stay, this is the life you'll have. My mother-in-law is demanding to be paid for babysitting our toddler. My wife, who's 39, is turning 40 in 10 days. To celebrate, we're taking a 5-day vacation, just the two of us. It's the first time that she and I, 38 male, have been away like this as a couple since the birth of our son, almost 4 years ago. We planned this trip months ago, and my wife asked her mom if she'd be willing to come over to our house and watch our son while we're away. Mother-in-law agreed right away. Mother-in-law is in her early 60s, but doesn't have a real job. She'll do cleaning for her brother, who owns a bunch of rental properties, and he pays her in cash. So it's not like she has a schedule she has to clear to stay with our son for a few days. Last weekend, my wife called mother-in-law to talk to her about our trip and to ask if there's anything mother-in-law will need or want us to stock in the house as far as food and necessities. During the conversation, mother-in-law said that she will need $100 per day from us. This is the first time she ever brought up wanting to be paid for watching our son. My wife was caught off guard and just kind of agreed to it. But when she got off the phone and told me about it, I got upset. I told her that mother-in-law is taking advantage of the situation because she thinks we have no other options. I told her that it's BS she sprung this on us so close to our trip, and I don't think we should pay her anything. I said that I would call my parents and see if they can watch our son instead. My wife told me that mother-in-law wouldn't ask that sort of thing unless she needs the money, and that adding $500 to our vacation trip isn't that much of a big deal. I told her that it's not about the money to me, it's about mother-in-law being sneaky and manipulative. I called my mom and asked her if they would be able to watch our son instead, and she jumped at the idea. Both my parents are recently retired, so they have plenty of free time and would love an extended grandson visit. I didn't explain the reason for the change. I just told them that things didn't work out with mother-in-law. I told my wife that my parents can watch our son instead and that she should call her mom and tell her that we no longer need her to babysit. She said that she didn't want to do that because mother-in-law was really looking forward to seeing our son. It's been over 6 months. I told her that if she was looking forward to it that much, she wouldn't be trying to swindle us out of $500. I told her if she didn't want to make the call, I would gladly do it. She reluctantly made the call herself, but it didn't go well. Mother-in-law got upset because we are now depriving her of seeing her grandson. My wife got emotional and ended up backtracking and said that she would talk to me and see if we could work something out. After the call, she asked me if there was some way we could figure this out, and I told her we aren't changing anything again this close to our trip. She said maybe we could offer mother-in-law a smaller amount, but I reiterated that it isn't about the money, it's about mother-in-law being sneaky and trying to take advantage of us. Not the jerk. If she needed and wanted to be paid, it should have been discussed up front. It's not something you bring up last minute. Not the jerk. Your parents have made a much more attractive offer. You have other options, so no. You are not in a position to have to give in. She wants to be paid to see her grandkid, no deal. Is mother-in-law broke and too proud to ask for money? You're the jerk for the way you're dictating this to your wife. You clearly expect veto power over money and other big decisions. That kind of sucks. I'm a guy, but if my wife wanted to give her mom $500 for doing absolutely nothing, I wouldn't dream of saying no. And she would say the same about me and my parents. In this case, it was actually compensation for her time providing care for your kids. Is the mother-in-law being a little manipulative with her late request? Maybe, or maybe not. Maybe she just needs the money, and rather than ask for a handout, she asked for compensation. Should you stomp all over your wife's decision because her mom made a minor request that you disagreed with? Absolutely not. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or mother-in-law? Please let us know.
If his parents will watch the kid for free, why should they pay her mom to do it? That last commenter though, some people just have no common sense.
Am I the jerk for embarrassing a lunch thief at work? I don't think I'm the jerk, but I've been getting some flack for it, so I really wanted to clear this up. So I started a new job recently. I work in a small studio and there are several others in the building. Think open plan office with sections assigned to each studio. The person I had an altercation with doesn't work for my studio, just FYI. I eat lunch around 1 p.m. and most people eat lunch at noon. I came down early to eat at noon. I made coffee, and while at the counter, I noticed my Tupperware in the sink, empty. Imagine my surprise when I turned around and saw a man I didn't even know sitting down at the table with my food on his plate. He had just stuck it in the microwave. Acting rashly since I was mad, I sat down next to him and said, "Hey, that looks good. Mind if I try it?" Then before waiting for an answer, I yanked the plate away from him and snatched his fork out of his hand. He just blinked in shock, as did everyone else as I started eating. He then, quite loudly, asked what I thought I was doing, and I replied, "Huh. You know, this was actually much better when I first cooked it. It probably lost some flavor in the fridge." He caught on quickly that it was my food and he turned a little red. I then asked him where he got the gall to steal someone else's lunch and then asked them what they were doing when they took it back. He stuttered out some nonsense about not knowing it was mine, and I replied, "Well, you knew it wasn't yours, right?" He just mumbled something like an apology, and I said that's no problem. It was nice he had warmed it up for me at least, in an admittedly annoyed tone. And then he just got up and left, and the people there just stared in silence. Two of the silent watchers, maybe his mates, I don't know, told me that I was rude to him and that there had been nicer ways to go about it. I told them to think about how they'd feel if someone ate their food before saying they should focus on their own lunch and I'll focus on mine. Well, it's been a little awkward at lunch since then, and I have the impression a few people are talking crap about me at work now. Maybe I could have been nicer, sure. I still don't think I was wrong. But tell me, Reddit, am I the jerk? Unpopular opinion, but you're the jerk. People who steal food for no reason absolutely are jerks, but you don't know this guy's living situation or financial situation. He should not have stolen your stuff, but publicly humiliating someone who may have to steal to survive? Nope, I would never do that. I would have pulled him to the side and politely let him know that it was my lunch. That way you get your lunch back. Don't humiliate him and don't look like a jerk to the rest of the office. OP. I see where you're coming from, but I don't see this as an acceptable excuse. He doesn't know my financial situation either. I've moved recently into a new apartment with a roommate and had to pay 3 times rent for the first month, deposit and first month's rent. And my low 3 months probation pay at work just barely covers rent, not considering utilities, groceries, fuel for my car, etc. I've been dipping into savings till I can get better pay and spent the first month in my place eating on the floor because we had no furniture or spare cash to get some. It's very unfair to put a stranger's financial situation ahead of mine when I cook in bulk to save money and sometimes eat the same food for lunch all week. I saw some comments saying I should go to HR, but my studio doesn't have HR and the perp doesn't work for the same place. We do have a de facto office manager, but I don't want to take it any further since I'm still new here and on probation. I think my reaction might have been enough. Update. I finally found out from a new friend at work that yes, the lunch thief had struck before. Apparently, everyone wrote their names on their lunch to combat this, and the thief then targeted unmarked lunch or lunch items. Guess no one told me. People apparently started being petty and standoffish to the thief since, and he blames me for that. Also, according to my new friend, most were actually very pleased that the thief was finally identified and dealt with. I was assured that besides the thief in question and his cronies, no one thought I was being a jerk. However, not knowing much about me, they assumed I was a very serious or cliquey person from my reaction, which I mean is fair. I dress very professionally when most of the office dresses quite casually, which probably added to that. I've started to come down to lunch earlier to chat with some people, and the office seems to be warming up to me. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or the lunch thief? Please let us know.
How on earth anyone can make excuses for a lunch thief who gets called out, I'll never know.
My boss is rude to my husband, and I don't know how to bring it up to him. I work as a bookseller, and about a year ago, our bookshop got a new manager. This was a great thing for the shop and for me personally. He's much more competent than anyone we've had in the past and has a real drive for developing people. I happen to be the person he's focused on developing, and it's been wonderful. I get paid more now, have lots more responsibility, and I'm being provided with all the training to start managing my own shop before Christmas. I'm being treated as a rising star in the business. We're part of a very big chain and given a lot of opportunities to excel, which of course feels fantastic. I'm very grateful. There's only one thing though. My boss is very keen to socialize with me outside of work, but one-on-one and as part of the management team. The culture in our shop has always been that partners, spouses, housemates, friends, etc. are very welcome at these events. However, my manager seems to absolutely despise my husband. I can't find any reason for this. Obviously, I love him, so you could argue that I'm biased. But really, everybody adores my partner. He's gentle, fun, and a good listener, and he always proves a popular addition. Honestly, half of my colleagues probably prefer him to me. He's only spoken to my boss a couple times, and only briefly, but my boss is openly dismissive of him. He makes disparaging remarks about him, stops engaging in conversations when I bring him up, and recently, when my husband arrived at some drinks, my boss visibly and obviously swung his entire body around in his seat so that he was facing away from us and left not long after that. I have no idea what to do. I have a fantastic working relationship with my boss, and frankly, I plan to capitalize on that. But this makes me really uncomfortable. For further context, I'm a woman and he's a man, and he's single. However, he's often told me that his preference is for very done-up, alternative but feminine women, which does not describe me. I'm scraggly-haired, no makeup, shapeless clothing wear. At first, I tried to dismiss his disparaging comments as an awkward attempt at humor, but after he so rudely turned away from my partner at the drinks, I'm angry. I don't know how to bring this up with them, or if I even should. Help. Update. The situation remained an odd one. While I wussed out of taking your advice when it came to actually talking to my manager about it, I thought there was enough plausible deniability that it might make me look like a bit of a nutter. I did start shutting down the comments when they cropped up, and being rather icier than I normally would be. As women, we're so socialized to be warm and accommodating that I think this took him by surprise, and the snide comment stopped pretty much dead. I've also set a firm boundary on socializing with him in anything but the largest, most work-centric outings. He got a bit snippy when I didn't come to his birthday, but sorry, I was out with my husband. Some friends of ours recently had a baby, so we had a very fun evening playing house with said baby, while the new parents got to have a rare night out together. I even showed my boss some adorable pictures of my husband cuddling the baby. I know, it's petty. However, the sheer wealth of commenters speculating that my boss has a crush on me has me thinking. They're probably right, and if they are right, then the way he's going about things is uncomfortable, creepy, and unethical. As we move into the much busier period in our shop, he started scheduling just the two of us to work late in the shop to catch up. Normally, this is a job that a team of at least 3 people would do, presumably to avoid situations like this. To add to the issue, as my commenters predicted, I didn't end up getting my own store. Imagine, I needed a 90% on my performance review to get promoted into it. They gave me an 89.9. Boss and the HR rep, who always sits in on these reviews as a representative of the regional manager, said in recognition of how hard I work and how many additional duties I take on, they'd enter me for a specific excellence award, which comes with a cash bonus. They've since come back to me and said, unfortunately, it turns out that's not what the award is for. I then set a meeting to discuss pay and advance the points that I'm taking on much more work than I was at this point last year, and getting paid effectively less for it due to the rampant inflation. The answer was that a raise was not possible, and the plan going forward would be to schedule another performance review after Christmas and discuss it then. Following this, I attended the Christmas meeting where they told us how our old shop was forecast to take upwards of $60,000 a day. I've had a couple of days since then to reflect on how I feel, and I've come up with it: undervalued and angry. Update 2. I got another job. After I wrote to you with my update, I decided I was furious enough to quit without another job offer in my pocket. To the abject horror of my parents, I did just that. I was, of course, very nervous about going voluntarily unemployed at the beginning of a recession, but I'm so pleased to report that, thanks in no small part to your job application advice, I've been offered another job. It's fewer hours, more money, more benefits, and to the relief of my formerly horrified parents, much more prestige. Since the offer came in, my boss has noticeably ignored me, which was an improvement. On my last day, he then handed me a card with a poem inside of it, and I kid you not, it said, "Don't tell your hubby." I just laughed at it and said, of course I would tell my husband. We share everything. Boss then squeezed my shoulder and said, "I'll miss you," in an embarrassing, heartfelt voice. Yikes. I did of course show my husband the card. I then took great pleasure in deleting my former boss from my phone, thoughts, and my life. I'm willing to bet that the creepo was pushing his usual type so that when he made a move, he could pull the, "You're so different from what I'm usually attracted to. You must be something special." Overheard my wife tell her friend on the phone that she settled for being with me and that marrying me was her last resort. I overheard my wife talking to one of her best friends on the phone while I was passing the bedroom. This friend is in a serious relationship. My wife then said to her, "Sweetie, remember it's your choice. Don't settle for just anyone. That's the mistake I made. Who knows who else I could have had? OP was my very last resort, and now look where it made me end up." Hearing that honestly broke my heart in two. Does she even love me? Why am I being treated as a second base? Am I being dramatic and overreacting? I haven't said anything about it since. I honestly don't know what to do, but hearing her say that has really made me upset. Update. Just did one of the hardest things I've ever had to do. Today after breakfast, I told her we should sit down and talk. She was hesitant, but I said it was important. We went to the living room and she said to me, "I already know what this is about." My post apparently made it to the front page, so of course she saw it after scrolling down a bit under popular. Of course, the waterworks started happening right away. I told her what she had said had deeply hurt me, but obviously she already knew that since she read my post. Through her tears, she said, "I was just joking. I wasn't serious." She then went on saying stuff like, "I love you. I love you." I told her I can't be in a marriage where my significant other doesn't love me the same way I love them. She tried to tell me that she loved me and that I meant something to her, but it was all BS. She said she didn't want to lose me. I told her I don't think this marriage was the right decision, and from there, I basically told her it was over. I told her I knew how she really felt about me, and that was messed up. She basically played with my emotions. For all those wondering, we have no kids, and I pay fully for the apartment we live in, and I own almost everything we have other than her clothes. I also pay for her car. So after all of this, she'll have little to nothing left. Before our marriage, we also signed a prenup, and at the moment, I've never been so happy with the decision I've made in my life. After that, it was a few seconds of awkward silence before she said to me, "Forget you," then started screaming at me, telling me, "You can't just end things like this." I told her I could do whatever I wanted, and that's when she became very hostile. She screamed at me saying, "You're the worst relationship I've ever been in. You think I can't find someone again? Do you think you'll ever be with someone as good as me? You're an idiot, OP." She grabbed her bag and phone and said, "I'm leaving," before slamming the door behind her. At that moment, I felt like I was on one of those dramatic sitcoms you'd find on TV. I sat down on the couch and cried, and I'm still crying as I type this up. It's both happy and sad tears, and I knew it was only time before she cheated on me or left me. She never loved me, it was obvious. Our relationship only went one way, and I feel like a complete idiot for not seeing it earlier. I live in California, and I'm gonna start the process to annul our marriage. Tomorrow, I'm gonna start throwing all of her belongings in the trash bags because that's essentially where they belong. I'm not throwing out her stuff, just using the trash bags as a way to give her back her things that she owns. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for all of your kind words and great advice. You gave me the courage to stand up for myself, and I know my life will certainly improve as a result. You want his car? Take his other crap first. My partner, Carl, and I were friends at first, and when he lost his house due to bankruptcy, he came to live with me. He had no job, lived in poverty on a disability pension, of which he gave his ex half, for 14 years since his wife left. In contrast, I owned my own house, had a successful business, and was pretty independent. He was very handy around the house and loved puttering, talking with the neighbors, and had a great sense of humor. He was clean and very easy to live with. We were together for 10 years. We treated each other well, but he had no rights to anything I owned and vice versa. I stayed away from his family drama as best as I could. Carl had 2 adult kids, Margot, who's 28, and Todd, who's 35. The kids never visited their father, ever, and when he called them, they rarely picked up or returned his calls. If they did pick up, they brushed him off or dismissed him entirely. I felt bad for him, but what could I do? They were like that for years before I met him. They were rude and nasty people, but he loved them and couldn't understand why they didn't have the time to talk to him. Carl passed suddenly one evening at 58. He had been in poor health, and finally his heart just gave out. Not 12 hours after he passed, Margot called to ask if he had any life insurance. For a nanosecond, I thought that she was concerned about my finances handling the burial, etc. But no. She told me that according to their mother separation agreement, he was supposed to keep life insurance on himself, and she and Todd were to be the beneficiaries. I guess he never told her that once she turned 18, he had canceled his life insurance because he was on disability and couldn't afford it. He may have tried to tell her during one of the phone calls, who knows. Later the same day, Margot called and asked if he had a will. She told me that she had already been talking to a lawyer. This was a day after he passed, and that because she suspected Carl didn't have a will, she would be his next of kin. She would be taking over the burial arrangements, etc., and she was the beneficiary of all of his stuff in my house, including his car, which was a used car, but still newer than hers. I was pretty upset by the timing of all of this and couldn't believe they could be this mean and cruel so soon after he had passed. He was their dad and he loved them. She then told me she would be doing a walkthrough of my house to be sure I didn't miss anything of his. That was when I said, "No, you won't." Margot got really upset about my refusal to let her into my house and to take the car the same day, and conveniently forgot to tell me where they were having the funeral. She didn't put it in the paper, and she only told special people where it was. I found out later it was 3 towns away. But she did let me know repeatedly that they wanted the car and all of his stuff out of my house. I knew that once she came to take the car, she would not be back to get the rest of his stuff, which she knew was nothing of any value. I would be left to get rid of a monumental amount of stuff at my expense. Cue malicious compliance. Now, dear Carl was a hoarder, and I mean that in the true sense of the word. Even if something was broken, useless, outdated, or worn out, he kept it. So he had 4 old-style TVs, 6 giant toolboxes, 8 computers, 2 barbecues, a floor model drill press that he was going to fix, a bandsaw he found in the dump, 6 stereo components. None of this stuff ever worked. He was saving them all for parts. Plus 198 boxes of metal parts from odd machines, trucks, cars, bulldozers, and buses that he had salvaged and collected over the years. It was all in the garage, which he thought was his man cave. 198 very heavy boxes. Guess they were packed quite full. Plus the pride of his collection, a 60-year-old 5-ton metal lathe that Noah used to construct the Ark. So I parked his car at the very back of my 2-car garage, then shoved all of the boxes of stuff in front of it, so that it was impossible to remove the car without taking everything out in front of it, including the metal lathe. It took 2 weeks and a lot of effort, but the garage was packed to the roof. I took a picture of the garage with the doors open. Margot and Todd soon started screaming to their lawyer that I was not cooperating in regards to the car. I responded that I needed to see a legal document that the car was in fact legally theirs, registered into their name, and properly insured in case they drove it away. I didn't want to be held liable. I also needed to have the rest of the stuff taken away. Plus, I had just had my driveway paved, so they had to have proper movers come to get his stuff, not just a couple of yahoos in a pickup that would damage my new driveway. They said they would, after they got the car. Their lawyer screamed that I was stalling and refusing to give up the car. He even went so far as to accuse me of selling the car. I sent the picture I had taken of the garage to my lawyer, proving that I still had the car. My lawyer said, "Where is it?" I said, "You can just barely see the roof, but it's over there behind the boxes." He got a good laugh out of that. So Margot and Todd had to hire a moving and storage company to come and collect Carl's precious stuff. The metal lathe took 4 men and a special small tow motor machine thing to take it away. It took all day for them to empty that garage. I asked where they were taking it, and they said to a storage unit. The head mover said something to the effect that there was no way this was all going to fit in the one storage unit they had rented. Oh well. So in the end, the cost of the movers was $14,000. I heard this from his best friend, and who knows what the storage unit costs and for how long they rented them. Perhaps they recouped some of the money they spent from selling scrap metal. They also had to pay for his funeral. Turns out I did have an insurance policy on him that I paid for and had planned to use it for his burial. But since I wasn't told where the funeral was, I used the money to pay off my mortgage instead. It would have cost them nothing to be nice to the woman that looked after their dad for 10 years. Am I the jerk for not being an active grandparent? I, male 47, have a son, Jake, who's 26, who has his own son, Mike, who's 5. Jake's mother and I only had a short-term relationship, and it was an accidental pregnancy. To be blunt, I never wanted to be a parent, particularly not at 21. However, Jake's mother did, and it wasn't my decision. Although we've always kept the peace, things have always been icy between us due to that. However, I always tried to do right by Jake. I would have him every other weekend and for a month during the summer, would do my best to deliver on anything he asked of me, treated him kindly, and tried to be a good dad. Then at a certain point, his mother married a guy that Jake hated, and I had him move in with me once he was 13. I won't lie, I wasn't cut out to be a parent. I love Jake, but I just hated parenting. I did it anyway since he was my son. We have a very good relationship, and I've never shirked any responsibility to him. Jake also became a father at 21. However, he was all for it and is happily married to Mike's mother. I also got him into my electrician's union and had him set up on some good jobs. So he was on much better footing than I was for a kid. Back then, we had a long talk, and I told him, Jake, being a parent is very different life. It's hard, exhausting, and on a day-to-day basis, you don't really get to do what you want to do very much. It will be a very long time before you don't have that kind of responsibility anymore. Then the conversation turned to how I'd help him. I told him no, I'm retired from parenting. I'm turning back to my own life. He has his own home, a union job, is engaged, and adult enough to decide to have a baby. He's the adult now. He's the parent. I'll be around, and if there are any emergencies, obviously I'll do what I can, but I won't be an active grandparent. I've largely held to it. I've been doing a lot of travel. I have a girlfriend, hobbies, and to be blunt, I'm doing all the things I didn't get to do in my 20s. Do I see Jake and his family? Yes. However, I rarely agree to babysit. Jake resents that I don't go to Mike's games. They tend to conflict with my weightlifting club, and that I'm pretty hands-off with Mike. Things came to a head last week when Mike had a baseball tournament and I refused to go because I had plans to take a scuba class with my girlfriend, which admittedly could be rescheduled. I didn't tell Jake this, but I spent so many Saturdays bored out of my skull watching Little League when Jake was little. I always cheered loudly, was crazy supportive, and never let on that it was like watching paint dry, but this is no longer my responsibility. So I told him, Jake, I spent 20 years parenting. That's enough. He then yelled at me that I'm always jetting around, playing like a teenager, not putting him first. I told him that no, I wasn't. I did that for 20 years to get him on his feet as an adult. I've done that, and I can go back to prioritizing my own life. You might not be the jerk, but you're ruining your relationship with your son by essentially saying, I don't care about being actively involved in your life. I've already done the bare minimum expected of me, and I won't do more. Do you want him to go no contact with you? Because that's the direction this is heading in. OP. Maybe this will make me the jerk, but if that's the price, okay. I've spent 20 years putting Jake first and not really having much of a life. I didn't get on a plane to Thailand and change my name. I didn't tell his mom, I don't want to be a father, so if you have a baby, I'll pay child support, but leave me alone. I was a very active parent. Jake was raised into a fully functional adult with a stable, steady job, his own home, and his own wife and baby. I did it because I fathered a kid. He couldn't take care of himself, and it was my responsibility. Jake is fully able to take care of himself and Mike, as is Mike's mother. If I need to give up the next 20 years and be daddy again, no, I'll only do it once. This time, I'm actually getting on the plane to Thailand. The price is too high. I've done my duty and hung up my parent hat. At this point, yes, I'm done. I've signed up for and took responsibility for Jake. Jake chose to have Mike, well and good. But now he's the parent, not me. Although every disagreement on the internet always has going no contact is literally the first port of call, real life isn't like that. But because it seems that's what everyone wants to talk about, if let's say that it really came down to that, so be it. I'd wish him and his family well. But whether it makes me the jerk or not, I've taken my life back, and I'm not going to put it to the side again. If the choices are I walk off into the sunset or I have to be a daddy again, I'm walking off into the sunset. Nobody has threatened such a thing, nor is anyone talking about it. But this being the internet, it is the go-to that everyone says immediately. I hope things don't go that way. I don't want them to go that way. But if those are the terms, that'll be my choice. My boyfriend faked a proposal, so I broke up with him. I, 24 female, have been dating my boyfriend, Andrew, who's 26, for 5 years now. We've had a healthy and stable relationship up until today. Andrew has always been a prankster and makes jokes with me all the time, and I do it with him too. But today, he took it way too far. In the morning, he woke me up at 7 a.m. and told me to wake up because he wanted to take me to the spa. I was pretty surprised because it wasn't a special day or anything, but I was all for it. At the spa, he told me how he wanted to go to a fancy restaurant after we were done at the spa and that he was paying. Of course I agreed, as we hadn't been out together in a long time. We then got to the restaurant. We had a beautiful and romantic dinner and just a nice time in general. We were talking about a house we were planning to move into and chit-chatted about other stuff too. After around 40 minutes, Andrew stood up and got on his knees and took a box out of his pocket. My heart stopped beating. I hadn't even predicted this. We've never even talked about proposals before, but I also thought how great the time was now. He did a speech about how I was the most beautiful girl in the world and how he wanted to live with me forever, and ended it with, "Will you marry me, my princess?" Of course, I said yes. Seconds later, all that excitement turned into horror. He opened the small box that I expected he had put the ring into, and instead it was a note saying, "You've been pranked," and Andrew started laughing hysterically. He continued with, "Baby, this was just a prank. I'm not ready at all to marry you yet." He was leaning in to hug me, but I gave him the biggest slap ever with tears streaming down my face. I just told him, "We're over, you scumbag." I'm now sitting in my bed crying and writing this, and I don't know what to do. He's been texting and calling me, but I haven't responded because I feel so sad, betrayed, and mostly angry. I thought this was going to be one of the best days of my life. What should I do? What do you mean, what should you do? You announced that you have big news. You and Andrew are finally ready to let everyone know that the relationship was just a prank. You're actually single. Then go date someone else who actually cares about you. Old boy took it too far. It's hard to come back from that sort of disrespect. I think you would be best not seeing him anymore. He lied to you and he tricked you. Now he can deal with the fallout. Karen tricked me into eating meat knowing I was a vegan. I've been vegan for 10 years and vegetarian for 3 before that. One thing to know is that after not eating meat, a person can't jump right back into eating a lot of it without some seriously unpleasant digestive issues. It has to be reintroduced slowly. I found that out by chance when I accidentally got drunk at a bonfire party, got confused between the vegetarian chili and meat chili, and spent the next day and a half fighting for my life on the toilet. Or another time I had a stew with meat by accident and it came out both ends at the same time. That was fun to clean. After these experiences, I've decided that if I ever eat meat by accident again, I'm just gonna throw up real quick, because that's at least better than a day or 2 of stomach issues. So last week, I was visiting my boyfriend and his family, and his parents and brothers have always given me crap for being vegan. They crack jokes about it all the time, but this time they were kinda pleasant, and on the last day said they had made me a meatless family recipe. This pasta was chunky red sauce with a bunch of veggies and stuff. It was kinda weird tasting, but I was polite about it when they asked, and I said I liked it. Then his dad was like, "Ha! Did you hear her? She said she liked it." And the whole family, except my boyfriend and I, were acting like it was some big joke. Then his dad revealed it had ground beef in the sauce. I was like, oh no, internally, because I had a 4-hour flight the next morning, and I did not want to spend it in the airplane bathroom. So I was like, excuse me, and I walked to the bathroom. His family was like, what? So as a bit of an answer to them, I didn't shut the door when I did what I was about to do, which was throw up. It was a little dramatic, honestly, but I'd rather it come out once easily than unpleasantly on the plane or bus, especially because the bus has no bathrooms. His family was getting kind of mad at me for throwing up with the door open because my boyfriend's brother's kid's daughter got grossed out and threw up also. I was upset, but decided it was better to spend my energy just buzzing off, so I was like, better out than in, right? I bounced and my boyfriend came with me, though he had been trying to talk to his family before I put my foot down and said I was out, with or without him. He's mad at his family for obvious reasons, but he's also kind of upset with me for how I handled stuff, feeling like making everyone hear and see me throw up, not cleaning up the splatter, and then heading out fairly wordlessly. I was like, no, I handled it fine. I wasn't being dramatic. I didn't want to be sick on the airplane tomorrow. And the splatter? They're lucky it wasn't coming out from the other end. At this point, I started laughing at the idea, which made my boyfriend even more angry. He was saying that kind of mean stuff was messed up, and I was like, chill, it's a joke. He's upset with me for that. I'm mad at his family, and I'm wondering, am I the jerk for doing this after my boyfriend's family tricked me into eating meat? Even though I'm vegan and it would cause digestive issues for me? Not the jerk. Boyfriend and his family suck. They should count themselves lucky you didn't throw up on them. My girlfriend wants to go on a trip with a male friend, despite me not being comfortable with it. I met my current girlfriend in our freshman year at college. We hit it off almost immediately and became pretty fast friends. After being friends for a while, I asked her out, and we've been together ever since, coming up on our 2-year anniversary in October. Recently, however, she and I have been fighting over a proposed trip she intends to go on at the end of this month. She has a friend who we'll call Paul, because that's his name and I don't care enough to censor it. I was always aware of him since he lives in her dorm and we've hung out a couple of times. But in the Venn diagram of our friend group, he's always been very firmly in her circle area. I've also always believed that he has feelings for her from only knowing him for a few months. They've always spent an inordinate amount of time together, even more than most of her other friends, and often more than I get to see her in a week. He's also made occasional inappropriate remarks about her, which I won't get into here. I've brought this up to my girlfriend multiple times, but she insists he just sees her as a friend. And while I think she's incorrect, I don't think she's being dishonest. I trust that she has absolutely no interest in him that way, and so I'm mostly okay with their friendship. At this point, it's honestly kind of a joke between us. Well, things between us have soured over Paul in the last week or so. His birthday's coming up soon, and he asked her to go on a trip with him to LA, which is on the opposite side of the country from us. She mentioned the plans in a kind of offhanded manner, and when I said I wouldn't be comfortable with that, she and I got into an awful argument about it. As it turns out, he paid for the trip, including plane tickets, before asking her, and when he asked her, she already agreed to go. I asked her not to go and said I'd find it incredibly inappropriate and hurtful, especially since he only booked one room for both of them. She said I was being hurtful to her friend and would really hurt their relationship. She also says that I was being controlling and accused me of not trusting her. There's a lot more details, but I don't really want to go into them in this post. What should I do, Reddit? I want her to be able to enjoy the last of her summer break, but I'm just not comfortable with this situation. Would it be too unreasonable to ask to go with them? I personally would walk away. She is willfully ignorant, thinking Paul has her best interest at heart. He actively makes inappropriate jokes about her and clearly has feelings for her. I don't care about friends of the opposite gender, but this is a hard pass for me as a person. She wouldn't like it if a girl was talking about your physical features and then off you go to a faraway state, one-on-one for a birthday celebration. He doesn't respect boundaries and he sounds creepy. Hopefully, he doesn't do anything unsafe. I would bring up these points again, and if she dismisses them, then that's your sign. Update. So, we split up. I was with her pretty much all night tonight and only just got home. And yeah, we're done. It was ugly. There was a lot of crying. Now, I know some of you might have questions about why I did it. To explain it, I need a metaphor. Have you heard the parable about a boiling frog, where you slowly turn up the heat on a frog in a pot so it doesn't realize it's being cooked alive? Well, if you gave the frog a thermometer, it might suddenly realize that it was being boiled and hop out. That's what my post on here was. It wasn't until I was reading through and considering responding to some of the comments I got that I realized how big the problems in my relationship were, because they had started small and built up over the course of literal years. I decided that whether or not my girlfriend decided to go was ultimately inconsequential. The truth was, this was never about the trip. This was about my girlfriend's treatment of me. The truth was, I trusted her on the trip. Deep down, with every fiber of my being, I trusted that she was sincere in her denials of their situation. I do not believe she would have done anything, but I don't think it matters. The simple fact is, she had been consistently downplaying and disregarding my feelings for years, all the while defending Paul, who had been manipulating her and several of our other friends. I could go into why I think this is, the desire to be a hero, etc., but none of it matters. She had dismissed my feelings out of hand and was willing to hurt me and belittle me in defense of Paul's behaviors, which she ultimately admitted were sketchy and manipulative. That's just a cold hard fact. Those aren't traits I want in a partner, and now I don't have to worry about that. As for me, I feel like my world just ended. I'd love if someone could give me some advice on how to handle this. I've never had a breakup this painful before. I'm also having serious regrets. Please let me know what y'all think. Right now I'm going to get plastered and go to sleep and hope somehow my life is bearable in the morning. Good night, Reddit. You're a great example of learning to set boundaries and gaining self-worth. Props to you, brother. It's going to hurt for a long time, but time will eventually drain that cold pain in your chest and it will fill with boiling courage and independence. Worst thing you can do is relapse and run back to her. Keep your eyes on the path ahead and get excited that the girl that respects you is closer than you think. P.S. I've gone to the ER for heartbreak, it hurts so bad, but I'm giving you advice because I empathize. OP. Right now, it's not even grief. I'm sure that'll come later, but that's not what I'm feeling. I just feel cold. Not angry, not sad, just cold. I keep thinking about how much pain she's in, and I know that I caused it because I wasn't happy. It all seems so selfish, but I know I have to put the oxygen mask on myself or whatever. She cried a lot, asked me how I could do this to us, to her, told me we could fix this, that I had never given her a sign, etc. Yeah, she's blocked right now. I just don't want to see those messages at the moment. I don't know how long we can keep it up though. We have a lot of the same friends and move in the same social circles. Update. It was rough for a while. I'm not going to lie, it still is. I didn't realize how many parts of my life she had touched until all of them started aching, and now I'm having to deal with the lingering pain of all the things I don't share with her anymore. I've had good days and bad days, but the good ones generally outweigh the bad. Our friend group split up right along with us. There were a couple of ugly fights, and I lost a few good friends, but I take a sort of tragic pride in the knowledge that I kept most of our friends in my life. I'm very glad that they've been so supportive of me right now. In unrelated but important news, important to me at least, I had to put my cat down last week as well, and I'm just generally not having a good time. But this week is a lot better than the last one, so things are trending up. I went back to the gym for the first time in literal years, so it's been nice. Still getting back into the swing of things and trying to get comfortable in a new gym, which takes some getting used to. I've been taking care of myself in other ways, listening to a lot of sad music, starting up a D&D game, and just generally taking it easy. I might even try a bit of writing again. Don't know if this is the kind of update you're looking for, but it's what's been going on. Update. OP has confirmed the trip did not go ahead. X has had a falling out with Paul and is now remorseful. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his ex? Please let us know.
When you have strong boundaries that your partner is not willing to respect, it's time for both of you to find a new partner.
Am I the jerk for buying a $50,000 guitar for $4,000 and refusing to sell it back when the buyer found out the real value? This happened a while back. My wife and I still talk about it every once in a while. She's on my side and most of our friends and family are. However, when it happened, it was like WW3 between us and her coworkers and others. Here we go. I've been playing the guitar for 22 years. I know guitar values and whatnot very well. I'm very into the guitar market. At my wife's old company, she was hanging out with coworkers one day after work, and she mentioned that I play guitar. A coworker, who I guess is very popular at work, said that his dad passed recently, and he was selling his dad's things. His dad had a guitar, and he asked my wife if I'd be interested in it. My wife texted me and said to have him send me the info of the guitar and the price. The next day, he texted me the pics and the price. It was a 1952 Telecaster in mint condition. He had the original receipts, which was crazy. That's how I know the date. I asked what he wanted for it, and he said he looked up Telecasters online and he thinks $4,000 is fair. I texted back, I'll take it for $4,000, and we went to pick it up. The guitar had no sentimental value to him at all. Here's the issue at hand. The guitar was, and is, worth approximately $50,000 depending on the buyer, and I knew it. When I got the guitar, I told my wife the price and what it was worth. She was floored. Fast forward 2 weeks, her coworker tells my wife he just found out what the guitar was actually worth from a family friend and he wanted it back. She said, well, he really likes the guitar and he knew that it was worth $50,000, which is why he was floored when you offered it to him for $4,000. He really likes it and I doubt he'll sell it back to you, but you can ask. Probably not the smartest thing for her to say, but she was caught off guard and it's not her fault or problem. He contacted me and asked to buy it back. I said that it's not for sale. He then said I scammed him and he was going to sue me and take my wife to HR for being a part of the scam, which was nuts, but he actually did contact HR. They were cool about it and said it's not their problem. It's between him and me. Over the next few months, he made things very uncomfortable for my wife at work. He would bug her constantly about it. She eventually had to go to HR for harassment and they actually let him go. She complained twice and he was warned but didn't stop. He's contacted me several times about it, so I got a restraining order for harassment too. I blocked him too. I haven't heard from him in about a year. Am I the jerk? Update. Just to clear up some things. I left some things out because I didn't want to influence anyone's opinion, and I really wanted it to be about me buying a guitar at a significantly lower market value versus the people in the story. I did include the fact the guy was harassing my wife at work, not to make the guy sound bad, but because I thought it was relevant to the story. Here's some specific details I chose to not include. The guy and his dad were not close at all. So these people saying that he was grieving and I took advantage of him, that's 100% not the case. When I went to get the guitar, he was telling me he hadn't talked to his dad in 6 years and was actually annoyed he had to deal with a funeral. The dad bought the guitar new and never played it. Luckily, it was stored in a closet and not in a basement or attic. There's no issue with the wood or electronics. It plays like a dream and I couldn't be happier. I'm not selling the guitar to the son or anyone. It will be with me for a long time. I'm in my 30s, so maybe in 30 years it will find a new home. I would have maybe considered giving the guy more money or giving him one of my guitars to sell on his own, but I decided not to do that after he left a terrible voicemail on my phone the day he found out the real value. He demanded it back like he was entitled to an object he sold fair and square, called me names, called my wife names, and said he would do bad things if I didn't sell him the guitar back. And to those people who say they would have told the guy the real value, that's a load of BS. If you went to a garage sale or estate sale and saw an item worth $5,000 priced at $50, there's not a chance that you would walk up to the homeowner and tell them that they mispriced it. You'd buy the item and then tell all your friends and family what a great score you got. Don't even kid yourself like you wouldn't do that. I don't feel bad about buying an awesome guitar at a steal of a price. I was curious what others would think, and it looks like I'm not the jerk, so thank you, Reddit. I can play the guitar with zero guilt now, not like I felt guilty before, but now my feelings are justified. The seller claimed to have checked value and priced it accordingly. Buyers don't usually negotiate up. Am I the jerk for saying my wife will have to quit her job if we get kicked out of another daycare? My wife and I have a 3-year-old daughter, Alex. Both of us work, and Alex has attended daycare since she was 1. In the 2 years since, we've been asked to leave 2 programs because my wife is a micromanager. I admit both of us went into the first program not really understanding daycare. I quickly learned that they can't provide personalized care, and after learning from our teachers, I reset my expectations. My wife, however, has a lot of anxiety and worries about our daughter. She hates when she gets even a little upset. She's in therapy and is working on it. First program, my wife would constantly watch the live feed and call the daycare multiple times a day. We had several talks about it, and the school talked to us twice. My wife ended up screaming at one of the teachers and then the director. We were terminated immediately. Second daycare was a little better because my wife began therapy, but my wife was still so nervous and had a complaint every single day. These were not important things, small things like she saw another kid took a toy from Alex and she would cry. The teacher would give the toy back to Alex, but my wife didn't understand why the other kid wasn't punished for it. This daycare didn't kick us out, but did eventually suggest that this may not be the best program for us. My wife and I decided to pull Alex out. My wife, because of her anxiety, myself, because I knew my wife has burned bridges and was becoming one of those moms. We chose a smaller home daycare this time, as we couldn't afford another center. The woman who owns it is very nice, but also firm. She stands by her boundaries and won't let my wife break any rules, whereas the centers were definitely more accommodating. My wife would take any inch she got. This time, she doesn't get that opportunity. I thought all was well, as the owner only speaks to my wife for the most part. Then I get put in a group text saying my wife has been bombarding the owner with texts every day, despite the owner saying she will text her at lunch when things are settled. She said at this point she will only be responding at specific times of the day and not looking at the rest. The owner then added several pages of the contract with passages highlighted, reminding us of certain policies my wife had violated. I was ticked. When Alex went to bed that night, my wife and I talked. I said this was our last option for daycare. The other centers are too expensive, and this was the only home daycare in the area that we like. A nanny is not in our budget. My wife made a million excuses, including that it's not her fault she's anxious. I said if we are asked to leave this program too, she will be the one quitting her job to watch Alex, not me. This upset my wife. I pointed out I've spoken to her kindly about this plenty of times. I encouraged her to keep up her therapy, but she can't keep getting us kicked out of programs. My wife is now not speaking to me. Am I the jerk? Edit. I cannot be the primary contact for daycare due to not being able to have my phone on me at work. Not the jerk. To keep it 100% honest with you, 20 years down the line, your daughter most likely will have decided to not be part of your lives. Your wife is the exact definition of a toxic helicopter parent. She's going to not only ruin your life, already in that process, your daughter's life in the future, and her own life as well. Exactly. OP's wife isn't just a helicopter parent, but a steamroller. She will steamroll any and all challenges their daughter will ever face, making sure that their daughter is either terrified of the world or completely incapable of dealing with any kind of disappointment or challenge or both. OP needs to do something now if he wants a relationship with his daughter and make sure his daughter doesn't inherit his wife's crippling anxiety. Am I the jerk for finally telling my mother-in-law that her mac and cheese tastes terrible? My husband, 30 male, and I, 28 female, have been married for 2 years, together for 5 years, and currently 6 months pregnant. We are very excited and blessed because I've had some complications in getting pregnant. I have a very good relationship with my in-laws, and if any of us ever had a problem, we're able to talk it through. Except for one thing. My mother-in-law has her famous mac and cheese that everyone in her family absolutely loves. I, however, find it disgusting on day one, but I didn't want to come off as rude and ungrateful, so I pulled through it without saying anything. I told my husband about it, and he said that his mother has been making it for decades, perfecting the recipe, and she would be deeply offended if anyone told her anything bad about her mac and cheese, so I should just find the right moment to tell her. He, for some reason, loves it, so he didn't want to be the one to tell her, which I totally understand because it is my issue and I had to deal with it. It's been almost 2 years of me pretending. So 2 days ago, I decided to just tell her. It was a family dinner where my husband's parents had invited us over, and of course his mother was making her so-called famous mac and cheese. I almost threw up at the smell of it, and I couldn't bear the thought of eating it, probably because I was pregnant. So at dinner, when I was offered the mac and cheese, I politely declined and said, "No thank you." My mother-in-law looked at me and asked, "Why? You should eat. Good for the baby." And I just went right out with it. "I'm sorry, but I don't like your mac and cheese. Everything else tastes delicious, but this is the one thing I simply cannot eat anymore." She looked so deeply offended and she literally snapped, "Well, thanks for being honest," and didn't even look at me or speak to me for the rest of the evening. My husband was on my side and tried to speak to his mother, but all I know is that it didn't work because she's been cold to me ever since. What was wrong with the mac and cheese? Her perfecting the recipe ended up with this result: mac and cheese combined with salmon, kimchi, pineapple, seaweed salad, collard greens, onions, and garlic. I don't have a problem with the greens or onion, but the rest tastes so disgustingly wrong with mac and cheese. However, the reason why I think I might have been the jerk is because, like my husband said, she's been perfecting this recipe for years. Her entire family clearly loves it, and I tell her that her perfected and loved mac and cheese is terrible. Am I the jerk? Edit. I did tell her that because I'm pregnant, it wasn't possible for me to stomach the ingredients, but she still doesn't want to talk to me. I'm French, and my husband's family is Korean, so that will explain the ingredients. I do enjoy salmon, kimchi, and seaweed salads, but it greatly depends on which dishes it's served with. And since I've been pregnant, I've even developed an aversion to several foods that I used to love. Not the jerk a million times over. That thing that she makes is not mac and cheese. It barely qualifies as food. What it is a crime against humanity that she should be jailed for. You lost me with the salmon and kimchi and the mac and cheese. You get not the jerk for standing up against crimes against cuisine. Not the jerk. When she first asked, you said no thank you. You didn't insult her, and you just said you weren't interested. That was short, crisp, and to the point. She wanted to know why, so you told her after she asked. Good for you. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or mother-in-law? Please let us know. I honestly think it sounds delicious. My mouth is watering right now, but I'll admit I eat some pretty interesting things. Today I messed up by realizing I destroyed an art piece in a gallery 10 years ago. While this event happened 10 years ago, I literally just realized an hour ago what I actually did. In 2014, I was just completing my master's degree in design. Now, the way the degree was set up, it was one course of 40 people, but we were all doing different areas. Dance, architecture, sculptures, textiles, everything and anything. We'd have lectures together and present the progress on our projects every couple of months. So end of year comes around and we start setting up our final gallery show. The space we were using was the first year art students' workshop, which we cleared out and prepped and painted fresh. When I arrived to do my part, one wall was a mess. It had like 100 holes all over it. I was upset that a first year did this to a structural wall and grabbed a sandpaper, filler, and paint to fix it. The show went ahead fine with a warning, wet paint sign in that section. I think you can tell where this is going. You know how your brain suddenly reminds you of things out of nowhere? Like, uh-oh, my laundry, or, I forgot to pay that bill. Well, I'm set in bed today, and suddenly I realize, uh-oh, that was Anna's master degree piece. You see, Anna was a part-time, mature student on different hours to the rest of us. We saw one presentation of her work, which was about making repeated holes and cuts into paper and card. I never thought about it much again. She must have come in before the rest of us, created the wall piece for the show, and left. And I'd gone and filled it and painted it away. To be fair, she never left any note or name on the piece. I don't even know if she knew what happened to it, since it's not like she would need to come back to collect it after the show, since it was, a wall. If she did, I hope she saw humor in it and added it to the piece's story. Humans crave to repair damage, etc. Either way, I'm now silently cringing and may need to repent to the art gods, lest karma strike me. Edit. We had already presented our work for grading before the show, so I didn't affect her grades at all. By structural wall, I really meant a permanent outer wall of the room, rather than a temporary one built for hanging work in the show that is removed later. Why did I repair a random wall? When you put on an art show, often you start with a grotty space that needs clearing up first. We had 3 days to clear out the junk, scrub the floors, repair damage, build temporary gallery walls, paint everything white, hang work and lighting, and clear up any construction mess. We all turned up whenever we had time to pitch in before the show. Am I the jerk for sleeping in the guest bedroom after my husband continues to take showers at 3 a.m. with loud music? My husband has started working night shifts, 8 p.m. to 3 a.m., over 2 months ago, and has since been using our en-suite bathroom for showers after work. This would have been okay, but he plays loud music through the Bluetooth speakers and claims he needs it to wind down. I've asked him repeatedly to use the shower downstairs and have even set it up for him with the same products he has in our en-suite. I've been using the bathroom downstairs every morning so I don't disturb him while getting ready for work, but he refuses to do the same. Since I'm a light sleeper, and after being sleep deprived for so long, I decided to sleep in the guest bedroom yesterday. He claims I'm being petty and should talk to him about this as opposed to sleeping in the guest room. The thing is, I've tried talking to him about it, but I usually don't bring up the discussion when it's happening and prefer to do it the next day after work, so I'm not upset and can have a rational discussion. He's been going around telling our family and friends, and they all think I'm being petty. I'm not sure if I'm doing something wrong or how else to go about dealing with this situation. I need to know if I'm the jerk. What is he telling friends and family that they're on his side? I haven't gotten the whole story, to be honest, but they're all focusing on me not sleeping in our bedroom. Apparently, this turns it into an argument or a fight. I've gotten messages from a couple of mutual friends and family members, but haven't responded yet. Is this new behavior? The funny thing is, he used to be really quiet and considerate in the mornings when he started work earlier than me. I don't know why he's having difficulties replicating after work. Does he usually run to his friends and family with things like this? There's only been a couple of instances, 2 that I can think of, when he has discussed things with his family and friends. I guess that's what he uses as an outlet. I do this too with people I identify as my support system, to get advice and let my feelings out. That being said, no one has ever confronted or made direct comments to him. Fortunately, he's really considerate in general. This is the first time that he's acted like this. I initially thought he was acting out because he's a morning person and is rarely up at that hour by choice. His family usually tends to side with him, but I have a feeling our friends don't know the whole story. I haven't responded to their messages yet. I like some part of my life to be private. I do see the irony in saying this after posting on Reddit for everyone to judge. Update. I started the morning at 5:30 with a quick run on the treadmill. Our home gym is right next to our bedroom. Thanks for the idea. This poor guy woke up and practically ran into the room thinking someone was trying to break in. He looked terrified. He was confused and concerned as opposed to angry when he was questioning what I'm doing and if everything is okay. I told him I'm too tired due to lack of sleep and didn't want to drive to my spin class. I thought it's a good idea to have a quick workout at home to wake me up and stimulate endorphins. Either he was stunned into silence or was too tired to put up a fight. It took him a while to ask how long I planned on working out for. I said 45 minutes and didn't catch the response he mumbled as he was leaving. I finished my workout at 6:15 and had a smoothie, hoping he'd fall asleep, if he hadn't already, before hopping into the shower and carrying out phase 2. With doors locked and the volume set to what he usually uses, I put on my playlist to work. I now realize that you can't really hear the music with the speakers outside the shower unless the volume is relatively high. 30 seconds in, the first song plays, Awakened by Death Clock. I hear him knocking on the door. I figured I could use the music and shower as an excuse to claim I didn't hear it. This increased to banging, calling out to me by the second song, and by the third one, there was complete silence. I think he only stuck around for so long since heating up another room might have taken a while. Thanks everyone for the music suggestions. I wish he had stayed for the whole playlist. By the time I'm out of the shower, our bedroom is empty. I find him watching TV downstairs. He asked me why I would do this when he's just finished a long shift and hasn't had any sleep. Told him I thought it was acceptable since he does the same thing. Like most commenters pointed out, the whole situation shows lack of care, and I was curious why he doesn't care and what caused him to change so drastically, because he usually isn't like this. After a lot of pushing, he finally admits that he likes our conversations after work and figured if I was up, we would talk. I don't understand how this is the thought process of a grown man. He claims he didn't realize it was an issue for me because I haven't been as angry about it. Here I was thinking the situation required patience and understanding. I also realized he's still grieving his grandmother's passing. She passed in April. They used to talk on a daily basis, and he hasn't fully accepted the loss and proceeded in a healthy manner. He's open to the idea of getting therapy to process it. I don't think this excuses his behavior, but it does explain a lot. Getting back to the showering at 3 a.m., we've agreed on the following. He will use the shower downstairs after working night shifts. If he wants to use our shared bathroom, it has a jacuzzi, he will text me before I go to bed and I'll sleep in the guest bedroom. I realized I was pretty much doing this to myself after the first week. I've learned that I don't owe anyone comfort at the expense of my own well-being, and I shouldn't have let it go on for so long. Yes, he's immature and childish, but I'm hoping we can work on it together. Like I mentioned in the comments, he's been very considerate and loving, except for a few isolated incidents, less than 5, during the 7 years I've known him. I don't think it's reasonable to expect someone to be perfect 100% of the time. I feel the need to point out that no one should use this statement to stay in an unhappy relationship. Am I the jerk for telling my parents they should just get a divorce? I, 16 male, have parents that really need to just get divorced. My dad has cheated on my mom in the past while she was pregnant. My mom didn't want a divorce because she didn't want us to come from a broken home. My mom used to be a family therapist. She thinks divorce has a negative effect on the kids, so they decided to reconcile and stay in the marriage for the kids. That's not going well. My mom quit her job and took a low-paying teacher's job to focus more on the house. As far as I know, they went to counseling and tried to work on their marriage, but I can see there's still tension between them. From the outside, they look like a happy couple, but they just ignore each other at home. My dad didn't stop cheating. This is like a cycle. My dad gets caught cheating, he begs my mom to give him another chance. Mom forgives him, and he stays good for a few days before going back to his old habits. Each time, I can see the life draining from my mom's eyes. I can see she is exhausted too. It hasn't been easy for me either. I dreaded coming home. I joined a summer program just to get away from home. My mom and dad tried to be civil, but my mom obviously lost all feelings for dad. She just doesn't care if he comes home late at night or not. My sister is suffering from it as well. She grew up around all of this. I tried to get help from my school's counselor, but it was a dead end. Last week, my mom and dad were fighting. My mom was having an affair with a teacher at her school. My dad got furious. My mom called him names, called him a hypocrite, and told him the only reason she is in this marriage is for the kids. I yelled, "Then just get a divorce." My mom and dad were a bit shocked because normally I don't scream. My mom called me ungrateful that she has sacrificed so much to keep this family together. I told her, "How is that going? Clearly you both have failed at it. Just get a divorce and leave me and my sister out of this toxic home." My dad grounded me. He canceled my trip for November as a result and also cut off my allowance. The only reason I have my laptop is for my school. Did I say something wrong? Update. So a miracle happened. My mom came to my room and talked to me. It was a few hours after I posted. She was way more calm than she usually is. She asked me if I really wanted the divorce to happen. I told her my side. I told her my experience of seeing them being hateful towards each other, seeing her suffer because my dad won't stop cheating. I knew dad was a jerk, but I was more angry with her for not leaving when she had the chance. How can she think that this is a good thing for us? She never cared how I thought of dad when I learned he was cheating. I dreaded seeing her suffer, and I'm afraid that I'm never going to get married in the future because of watching them. I always wondered why they are even together if they don't love each other. I was a kid, sure, but I wasn't an idiot. My mom cried. She told me there were several times she thought about leaving, but couldn't because she thought she was doing the wrong thing and it would make me and my sister suffer. When she started her affair, she was slowly sorting things out for her. She has been planning her exit since then. She had already contacted a divorce lawyer and drafted the papers, and she was going to serve my dad later, but her affair got exposed. She wanted the divorce to be amicable, but now it seems it's not possible because my dad is refusing to divorce her. I told her it will be better if me and my sister live with our uncle for a while. She admitted that's a good choice. I hugged her and she called my uncle the next morning. Me and my sister left with him. My mom also left the house, leaving my dad alone. My dad tried to argue that she can't leave him, but since my uncle was there, he couldn't do much. My mom told me and my sister that she will call and she is staying with a friend of hers. I think this time she will go through with the divorce. I don't care who cheats on whom. I just wish all of this to end. I may come back once my parents get a divorce. Better to grow up in 2 happy homes than 1 broken home. Genuinely can't understand how a family therapist thought staying together for the kids would be better. My new Karen neighbor won't let me do my job. So my grandparents live in a gated community. It's kind of expensive, so people who live there can be kind of jerks, but nothing as bad as in this story. So I went over to my grandparents one weekend, and my grandmother asks me if I could go help the neighbor's kid with a school project. It was about 8 at night, but I can never say no to this woman. I went over, ready to do some work, when entitled neighbor answers the door. Karen:
You must be the neighbor's grandson. Thanks for coming by so late.
Me: Yeah, it's cool. Where's your son?
He's over there by the computer. He already has the research done. He just needs help making the presentation.
I think to myself, wow, this'll be easy. I introduced myself to the kid. He's about 12, and overall he was a nice kid, if not a little nervous. As we're doing the project, entitled neighbor is standing by the counter watching over us and commenting on the work. Karen:
Could you make that picture bigger, please? We want to make sure the class sees it. Same with the words.
Me: Yeah, sure, no problem. I make the pictures a bit bigger and more central and make the words look more like commentary. She chimes in again, a bit ruder.
Bigger. We have to make sure the people in the back can see it.
Me: But if we make it bigger, we won't be able to fit the words and pictures on one slide.
That's fine. Just make them bigger.
Me: Okay, tell me when. I start slowly making the font bigger until one of them tells me to stop. She doesn't tell me to stop till I get up to 48, and even then the words are barely fitting on the slide. Entitled mom:
Perfect. Now, just do all the slides like that, and we'll be done in a jiffy.
We weren't gonna be. Every time I tried to help this kid make his presentation look better, even when he tried to make it look better, she had to interject. It was always,
Make this bigger. I can't see that from here. Take that off. It looks tacky.
This went on for 2 hours. Finally, we finish. Karen's kid: This looks great. Thanks so much. I can't wait to show this off in class. That's when I noticed that the presentation is 36 slides long. There was absolutely no way he was going to be allowed to present something this long in a classroom. I told him as much, and I said the same to his mother.
Karen: No, I think it looks perfect. I'm sure the teacher won't mind his being a little extra long.
Me: But he could seriously lose points if he doesn't shorten it, or worse, doesn't present. Karen's kid: I mean, we can shorten some of the less big stuff.
Fine, if you think it'll get him a better grade, but it's on you if he fails.
I was a bit annoyed at that comment, but at least I made some progress. We managed to bring the slides down from 36 to 28, at which point it was hard to compress stuff without deleting sections outright. Now, some of you are probably saying, goodness, 28 slides for a 12-year-old? That's a lot for a teacher to assign. I do agree, but this story takes place in late January, so I figured it was one of those Christmas break projects that were really long. When I finally take a look at his rubric for the project, I saw something horrible. The assignment called for 8 to 10 slides. I was so upset because we now had to cut out so much. I go to the mother to talk about it. Me: Hey, so the project calls for 8 to 10 slides, so we're gonna have to cut some stuff out.
No, my child spent hours getting that research, and all of it is going to be in the presentation.
Me: But the teacher will never let him actually present that in class. It's too long. Entitled mom, slightly more annoyed:
I thought you were working for so long to fix that problem.
Me: That was before I knew it was originally 4 times as long as the maximum.
Whatever. It's better to go over than under anyways. If he's done with the presentation, you can leave.
At this point, it was almost 11 at night, and I just didn't have the energy to deal with it anymore. I wasn't even getting paid for this. The most I got was some hot chocolate. It tasted horrible, by the way. About a week and a half goes by, and my grandmother calls me, saying she just got off the phone with her neighbor. Apparently, her kid got a terrible grade on the project, and it was all my fault. I caught up with the kid a while later. He got a B-. I told her the situation and she hangs up to talk to the lady. When she calls back, she says that the lady did confirm that's what happened, but still says it's my fault. Needless to say, I was not asked, nor did I ever offer to help her again. This kid's mother is an idiot. Not your fault, you tried to help, but she has too big of an ego. Lesson learned, if you go to help someone, but for some reason they don't let you help, walk away. Karen crashes my car because she wouldn't stop texting. I'm 25, male. My little sister, who's 18, let's call her Christy, has recently gotten her license. She obviously thinks she's an incredible driver and can handle a car no matter what. After only 4 months of driving, she's already become one of those people who put their phone in their lap to be able to look at messages and access it quickly while they're driving. It drives us all insane, to be honest, and I and other family members have talked to her about it multiple times. It goes in one ear and out the other. Yesterday, she did it again while driving my car when we were out getting groceries. She had been distracted for almost the whole drive and even continued to look at her phone after a brief break when I told her to stop it. When she was about to roll into a parking spot, she probably got a message and looked down at the phone. I noticed that she was about to ram into a lantern, and when I was sure that she wouldn't cause damage to any other vehicles, I decided to just let her run into it instead of intervening. It was a huge shock to her, and she just sat there completely still for like 15 seconds, processing what had just happened. It wasn't until I said, "Will you learn to leave that phone alone now?" that she spoke again. The first thing she said was, "Why didn't you tell me?" in an absolutely baffled tone, and I told her straight up that I didn't tell her so she'd learn a lesson. She was absolutely livid and tried to push all the blame onto me for not intervening. But I told her it would have been the same outcome had I not been there, and that ultimately she, as a driver, is responsible for not only her, but also other passengers' safety. Christy was absolutely gobsmacked that she messed around and found out, even more so when I told her that she would have to account for half the damage that she caused in the accident that the insurance wouldn't even cover. In total, that was just shy of $200. Blown out light, bent bumper, and a dent in the hood, plus a few scratches and the damage to the pole of the lantern. She went completely wild, but I told her she's lucky I'm not making her pay for everything since she was driving while being on the phone. A few days after the insurance gave me the sum and I told Christy what she owes me, which she paid me immediately, she told me that apparently because of this, she won't be able to go on a trip with her friends and that I'm a massive jerk. She also added she would have learned her lesson otherwise too. I personally doubt that she would have, and honestly, distracted drivers are the worst. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. I applaud you for being willing to sacrifice your vehicle to help your sister learn a hugely important lesson. The fright, coupled with the very real consequence of being responsible for damages, should resonate with her for a while. I hope she will also reflect on what else might have happened, such as if that lantern had been a pedestrian. I think I'm going to have to end things with the man I love because I don't want kids. I'm 30 female and my boyfriend is 34 male. We've been together for the last 4 years. Our first date was basically our whole life stories and just talking about everything and anything, whether it be deep or not. I would say most of our relationship has been this way. Even when we fight, which has maybe happened a couple of times, we'll take a break and regroup once emotions settle. When we disagree, we talk it through. He looks at me like I'm the most beautiful person he's ever seen. He constantly tells me how lucky he is to have me and how I deserve the world. We both love to cook and clean for the other person, so we always have different games set up, and the loser gets to relax while the winner gets to pamper the loser. I know it sounds weird, but it works for us. I love this man so much, and I know he loves me just as much. Now here's the problem. A couple months into us dating, kids got brought up. Communication is super important to me, and him, so I told him I didn't want kids. He thought I was joking because all of my friends and siblings have kids at this point, and I'm the fun tia, auntie. I even put together parties for the kids and fun themed days when I'm having one-on-one time with them. I do love kids, but I don't want any of my own. I explained that and he said, "Well, maybe you haven't met the right guy." I had to sit him down and explain that while I do believe people can change, he cannot be with me expecting my opinion about kids to change. He needs to take my not wanting kids at face value instead of hoping that I will change my mind, because what if I don't change my mind? I asked him to think it through for a week or two, and then we can circle back to the topic, because at this point, we're thinking about being official. But if kids were that important to him, then we needed to stop now before it gets much harder down the line. He told me later that kids are not that important to him and that he can see a future without kids. Fast forward to a month ago. His parents and some extended family were visiting for my boyfriend's brother's wedding. We're in the US and his family's from Eastern Europe. I've always gotten along with his parents and his brother's now wife. His parents will visit a couple times a year and have always been so kind and thoughtful. At the wedding reception, I was being introduced to all of the family. Eventually, someone asked when my boyfriend and I were getting married, and my boyfriend just winked at the question because he knew I already knew that he was planning to propose soon. He just asked way too many ring-related questions since he knows I hate diamonds, but wasn't sure the direction he should go since I barely wear rings. He could propose to me with a ring pop for all I care. Later at one point, one of his cousins asked how I would feel about my future kids learning their native language, to which I responded, "Oh, I don't want kids, but I'm actually learning the language myself." There were a few members of the family around, including my boyfriend's parents, no boyfriend though, and they all looked at me shocked. I didn't understand why I was getting that look, so I just awkwardly laughed and asked everyone not to tell my boyfriend I was learning the language because I wanted to surprise him. I thought it would be cute to respond to his proposal in his native language. I went looking for my boyfriend and found his brother and the bride instead. We were talking and eventually I asked, "Hey, is it weird in your culture to not have kids? Because I got this really weird look from your parents when I said I don't want kids." His brother proceeds to tell me that it's not weird, but that my boyfriend has always wanted to have kids, so it probably shocked their parents to hear that I don't want any. Apparently, my boyfriend always wanted at least 3 kids, and he has always been super excited about the idea of having them. I think his brother noticed the look on my face and backtracked a bit, saying something like, "Wait, it's not a big deal. He changed his mind because he loves you more than the idea of having kids." On the ride back home with my boyfriend, I asked my boyfriend if he really is okay about not having kids. He sighed because apparently he had heard from his parents about what I had said. He apologized about it and said that he did stop talking about kids since we have been together, but that his parents always assumed he would still have them. He also sometimes wonders if I'll change my mind, but he doesn't think I ever will. He said that when we talked about this while we were dating, he could imagine a future without kids because he couldn't imagine a future without me. It's been a month since the wedding, but I've started to notice little things with my boyfriend. A lot of our friends have kids, and I'm always letting my friends know that they can bring their kids over instead of having to find a babysitter. I've noticed that my boyfriend looks slightly envious when he sees our friends interact with their kids, or sometimes I see him look slightly dejected when he sees a family with a bunch of kids. Maybe this is in my head now that I know that he's always wanted to be a dad until he met me. Maybe it's not in my head. I truly want him to be happy, but I know I don't want to be a mom. I wish I felt differently, and I wish I could compromise with him. But I would never want to bring kids into this world knowing I don't want them. That's not fair to the kid. And if him being happy means he finds someone else to have kids with, I'll have to live with that. He knows something is wrong because he said I feel far away lately. I think he knows why. I know I have to sit down with him and fully talk this out. Part of me feels like this conversation will lead to us breaking up because he really truly does want to have kids. He might resent me for not wanting to have them. I just feel terrible. Update. 2 days after my original post, my boyfriend and I sat down to talk finally. As I suspected, he knew exactly what had been bugging me, but he didn't want to push me to have the conversation before I was ready. He started it off with why he is okay with not having kids. He grew up with his parents and brother. He saw the joy that his parents got from raising the 2 of them, but he also saw how unhappy they were in their marriage. Yes, they are still together, but they're more like co-parents and roommates than an actual couple. My boyfriend was very cynical when it came to relationships growing up because he felt like he never saw enough happy couples. His parents weren't happy. His friends were in and out of relationships. He was in and out of relationships. In his head, kids would bring him and his partner happiness and purpose in a relationship. Yes, he admitted to the absolute insanity that was his thinking, but when we started dating, he realized this and started going to therapy to help him work these feelings out. He's been in therapy ever since. He said when he met me, I changed everything for him, and that he knew on our second date that he was going to marry me. So when months later I mentioned I didn't want kids, he was disappointed, but the main reason was because the idea of having little versions of me running around was something he had thought about for the months we were dating. And yes, he meant it when he said that he could see a future without kids, but couldn't see a future without me. It's why he had been super supportive about it when I was looking into surgeries to prevent having kids for me. It's why he never even brings up the possibility of either one of us changing our minds. I asked if he was jealous of our friends who have kids, and he laughed. He said that when he sees a family or sees our friends with their kids, He can see that the relationship between a parent and the kid is special, but the freedom that we have in our relationship, along with extra funds we have for ourselves, far outweigh his past feelings about being a dad. He said that I was his family, and if I didn't want to increase the size of our family, that he has no problems with that because he's already so happy. He finally found the love of his life, which he never thought would happen, so he doesn't want to mess with something that's perfect. He just never brought it up with his family and was slightly concerned that they would try to pressure us. Kids are a big thing in their family. His brother already knew and obviously had no problems with it. He said he had a talk with his parents and the relatives he was closest with about it. His parents are not exactly happy, but my boyfriend admitted to me that he lied to them and said he was the one who didn't want to have kids. He just wasn't sure what their reaction would be and didn't want me to deal with any of the negative backlash. He said if I ever feel pressured about anything ever, whether it be by him or his family or even my family, to let him know because we're partners and we work through these things together. He isn't afraid of going no contact with anyone who makes a big deal about something that isn't any of their business. I told him that my main concern was that he was putting my happiness over his because he has a tendency to do that with people he loves, and I didn't want him to regret anything later down the line. He said he understood my concern, but that he swore up and down that these 4 years have been the happiest of his life, and the fact that I was so stressed out about whether he was happy or not is further proof that we are meant for each other because I also have a tendency to put his happiness over my own. He then proposed to me with the original ring he bought the first year we were dating. I didn't even know he had bought a ring before. He said he would have done it that first year, but I had made a comment that I wanted to wait at least 3 years before getting engaged, and now he's making significantly more money, so he's been looking to go all out on a new ring. But I really love the ring he originally bought. It isn't big or flashy, but it is a very unique design that's subtle and beautiful. The color is also the same color as my boyfriend's eyes, which I'm always gushing about. So I told him there's no point in looking for another ring because this one was already perfect. Am I the jerk for canceling vacation less than 24 hours in due to my kids' behavior? My husband and I have 3 kids, sons who are 9 and 8 and a daughter who's 3. The boys have been driving us crazy. They fight like cats and dogs. We've had countless talks with them about respecting each other, to no avail. I understand sibling rivalry, but it's gotten to the point it's disruptive to us all, every day. I already told my husband last week I wasn't sure if the vacation was a good idea. My husband shut me down pretty much immediately, and things went ahead as planned. First of all, the 3.5-hour car ride was predictably horrible. Boys fighting and riling each other up the whole time. Husband and I kept trying to reassure each other that things would be better once we got there, and they would be too excited to cause trouble. We were wrong. They had so many reminders of what not to do once we got to the rental house, so they do everything wrong from the get-go. Shoes on the white furniture? Check. Running in the house? Check. I turned my back for 2 seconds, and one of them threw a box of chalk in the pool to keep his brother from getting it. We went out to lunch, and they were out of control in the restaurant. One ran away from us in a strange place because he didn't get his way. We finally got to the beach, and they're frankly being brats, refusing sunscreen, fighting over toys, pushing their luck repeatedly, going further and further out in the water than we told them to. By the time we got back to the house, it was around dinner time, and I was fed up. They were totally ruining it for everybody. Nothing had worked, and I told my husband we needed to go home for the reasons mentioned above, mainly that they needed to see a real consequence. My husband still insisted it would get better. I put my foot down and told him that I didn't even want to be there at that point, so either I was leaving or we all were. He got super upset and told me it was ridiculous and unfair to our daughter. I actually agree with him, but saw no other choice at this point. Of course, when I tell the kids, they immediately burst into tears and are begging to stay, promising they'll behave. My mother, who came with us, was also near tears. She thinks her precious grandbabies do no wrong. She argued with me too, begging me to just let it go, but I refused to budge. So we left, less than 24 hours into a 4-day vacation. Half the ride home was spent with them crying, and my husband pretty much gave me the silent treatment the whole way. My mother decided to stay behind a little bit longer, but then started randomly texting me about 30 minutes in, asking if I was serious. She knew I was, and told me the whole reason she came was to spend time with the kids. So I had now ruined it for everybody and their only little ones. Here we are the following evening, and pretty much no one likes me right now except my 3-year-old. Are they right? Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. Actions have consequences. Your sons are learning a needed lesson. Not the jerk. Kids need consequences, and it sounds as though your husband and mother have been too inclined to give them one more chance. If you ever need to say to them again, "Stop that," or "We're going home," they'll know that you mean it. You're the jerk. Your kids are brats because they were raised by bad parents. They're under 10. I completely blame the parents. You need to figure things out. Both you and your husband need to get on the same page with respect, responsibilities, and discipline. Am I the jerk for not wanting to split my jackpot win with my husband's friend? I, 30 female, played the lottery for the first time last year when everyone was talking about the Powerball jackpot. Since then, I've played casually, only spending a few dollars a week. I occasionally won a few bucks, but I never really expected to win anything big. But it was nice to dream, as I had a ton of debt and have been struggling a lot. Fast forward to a few months ago, won't say the month for privacy. I checked the winning numbers one night against my ticket, and it matched with my numbers perfectly. Initially, I didn't believe it and thought that there had to be a mistake, so I told my husband, male 35, and we checked it like a dozen times, and I was right. We won. It's life-changing, multi-generational, forget you money. We instantly agreed to keep the news to ourselves and wait a few months before we did anything. The past few months have been incredible, filled with disbelief, and though it's been difficult, we have managed not to make any large purchases or change our lifestyle. We fantasized about what to do with our money, but the time to claim is drawing near, so we have begun having more practical discussions about how to claim it and what to do with it. While discussing, my husband, Adam, brought up that he thinks it'll be a great idea to split the money with his best friend and business partner, Tim. Tim and Adam have been friends since they were in middle school and have done everything together ever since. Together, they've started businesses, worked together, invested money, moved to the same town, and have often dreamed about our families making it big together. Since we have taken risks together and are close, Adam feels it's fair to give them 1/3 of the cash prize so that 1, we're not going on this journey to a new life alone, and 2, it's suspicious to make all this money suddenly and more easily explained if Tim makes money as well, since we do everything together. I, however, feel it's risky to share that we've come into this money with them because Tim's family tends to be more flashy and like showing off, and I don't fully trust that they will keep it quiet or modest enough to not raise suspicion. This is important because I've seen community members harass and attack people with far less money just because they feel entitled. This could jeopardize our safety, so I want to avoid it if at all possible. Also, I'm not really comfortable with his plan to add Tim and his wife as members of our LLC to claim the prize, because I think it could have them feel entitled to a bigger chunk or take the money. Adam thinks I'm being selfish, and he won't enjoy our newfound wealth if his friend isn't living the same lifestyle. But I think we could find a way to later give them some money after figuring out a way to explain how we came into it without telling them that we won the lottery. No idea how to do that yet. Anyway, am I the jerk for not wanting to tell them we won the lottery and split the money with them? Am I selfish? Not the jerk. Call an attorney and a financial advisor. Keep the money out of your husband's business. Not the jerk. If you want to buy Tim a new Accord, go nuts, but giving him 1/3 of your winnings is insane. Talk to a lawyer ASAP. If you're not already talking to one, you're doing it wrong. Also, get the money somewhere that your husband cannot decide to move it without your permission and knowledge. I'm 28, female, and my boyfriend, who's 31, is obsessed with becoming a content creator and emptied out retirement funds. He really wants to be a YouTuber/Twitch streamer. He makes YouTube videos and streams on Twitch. Around 4 years ago, he quit his job and pulled everything he could out of his 401k to try and do it full time. It didn't take off. He ran out of money and had to get a job again. The first time he did it, he made it 9 months before running out of money. Rinse and repeat about once a year. He stuffs his 401k with money, but then quits and pulls it all out to try and do this full time again. Also, because he quits so soon, he's not vested and doesn't get to keep any employer match. He now makes it about a month before running out of money and having to go back to work, except he basically starts with 0 retirement. We just started the 4th iteration. He informed me last night that he has quit his job and started the withdrawal process for his 401k. I asked him what's his game plan, and it's basically, just do the same thing, but more often now that I don't have to go to a job. I've tried encouraging him to make a plan and try different content, not gaming, but he's convinced playing Valorant will get him there. I'm a full-time streamer on Twitch and make a lot of money doing brand deals on TikTok and YouTube for gaming stuff. He really wants this lifestyle and refuses to accept that he may just need to keep working while working on YouTube on the side. I try to remind him that I streamed to no one for years while working full-time, and lockdown is probably the only reason I succeeded, and that ship is long gone. I would love for him to succeed with it, but I need him to work if we're going to be married one day. I need him to be saving for retirement and be responsible. I've never had to cover his bills or anything like that, but I'm worried about his future because he keeps yanking out his retirement repeatedly. I don't know how to approach this. We had great years together before I became a streamer, and now it's the job he wants. I've tried encouraging him to try new things while also working full-time, but I don't understand because I got laid off at lockdown and got to just do it while the government sent me checks. I worry it never happens for him and he has no retirement, but also no career growth because he quits so often. I don't know what to do. I have multiple streamer friends. Almost all of them do it after work at a real job. Only one friend actually pays his bills with streaming. He too streamed to no one for years and slowly built himself up from the ground while working other jobs. He's also very smart about what he streams, markets himself, and with all that, there are still times where he runs thin enough to consider getting a part-time job again. Your boyfriend is delusional. This is the new equivalent of, I'm gonna start a band. If you're still wanting to make this work, you need to sit him down and tell him bluntly that this didn't work the last 8 times he did it, and you need a stable partner. If he wants to stream, he can do so after work. If he gets to where he's making good supplemental income, then he can quit. Money is one of the #1 reasons of divorce routinely. This is a major problem and needs to get sorted. Karen demands I bring her kid on our family vacation. While my husband and I are childless and we have no desire to have kids of our own, we absolutely love spending time with our nieces and nephews. Among them are my brother's 11-year-old son, Alan, my 6-year-old niece, Ava, and my sister's 10-year-old daughter, Kelly. Last May, we planned a weekend trip to a beach town about an hour away with the kids. Our purpose was twofold: to bond with them and also to assess if they were ready for longer overnight trips. It was reassuring to know that we'd be within driving distance of home in case any of them needed to return early. My husband and I anticipated that Ava, being only 6, might have some difficulty staying overnight away from her parents. However, both she and Alan were well behaved throughout the trip. Unfortunately, Kelly misbehaved for the entire trip. Friday, we picked them up from their parents' houses around 5 and arrived at the beach town by 7. During the car ride, Kelly instigated and kept trying to start fights with Alan. At the grocery store, she wouldn't listen and refused to take turns with Alan and Ava to watch TV. Saturday, Kelly threw a fit because she wanted ice cream right away, but we had planned to go later. We offered her fruit as a snack, but she threw some of it in the trash until my husband intervened. At the beach, Kelly repeatedly filled the hole Ava was trying to dig with sand, despite us asking her to stop. She also tried to provoke fights with her cousins. During dinner, she was rude to our waitress and gave a sarcastic response when asked to apologize. Sunday, at the gift store, Kelly wanted both a conch shell and a mermaid doll, but didn't have enough pocket money for both. When we explained that she needed to choose one, she threw a fit and ended up with neither. Back at the hotel, Kelly ignored our request to help pack suitcases and kept trying to watch TV instead. During the car ride home, she continued to instigate fights with Alan and Ava. My husband and I had a serious talk with my sister about Kelly's behavior, and we decided that she wouldn't be invited on any more overnight trips with us. We stuck to our decision, and it's upset my sister, who believes that we're being unfair to a 10-year-old. I understand that Kelly's just being a kid, but there's a reason we waited until the kids were older to go on these trips. At 10 years old, she's too old to constantly misbehave and throw tantrums like she's 4. My sister argues that Alan and Ava may be more mature and calm for their ages, and we shouldn't single out Kelly for not being an exception to her age. However, we believe that setting boundaries and holding her accountable for her actions is essential for her growth. My sister may be upset with our decision, but we're sticking to it because we want to encourage responsible behavior and respectful attitudes during our trips. We hope that in time, Kelly will learn and grow from this experience, and perhaps she can join us in the future adventures once she demonstrates better behavior. Not the jerk. You are Aunt and Uncle of the Year. Don't worry about your sister either. She's just upset that you're being a better parent to her kid by sticking to your word than she is capable of being. Not the jerk. They raised a brat. Now they have to deal with the consequences of that. My guess is that she still throws tantrums a lot of times at home, and they placate her by giving her whatever she wants. Also, being an only child likely hasn't helped. Am I the jerk for saying my wife made us look disgraceful? In the past year, I, male 42, have been fortunate to receive a promotion to a senior position at the engineering company I work for. With this new role came increased responsibilities and longer work hours, but on the positive side, my salary saw a significant boost, much to the delight of my wife, who's 40, and our 3 kids, who are 14, 14, and 10. The other day I was working from home, participating in an important Zoom meeting about an infrastructure expansion plan with around 30 people, including a government representative and the regional head of our firm. As an introverted person, public displays of affection have never been my cup of tea, so you can imagine my shock and embarrassment when my wife, who had just returned home, unexpectedly sat on my lap and started kissing me right in the middle of the call. My concentration was broken and I lost my train of thought, just as I was responding to a point made by the regional head. I'm pretty sure everyone on the call noticed too, given the awkward silence that followed. My wife eventually noticed my discomfort in the ongoing call, so she left the room. From that point on, it was challenging for me to regain composure and continue with the presentation. I found myself speaking too fast and even stuttering. A coworker, female 39, took over for me, and I didn't contribute much until the Q&A session. Towards the end of the call, when I mentioned my plans to refine the plan by the next meeting, the regional boss made a comment about my wife needing me more than they did, which further added to my humiliation. After the call, I confronted my wife about what had happened. Surprisingly, she didn't seem too bothered and even thought it was good for my colleagues to see me as a family man. She mentioned that she thought the webcam was off. I was frustrated and explained to her that her actions had made us appear disgraceful and immature, causing me great humiliation. However, my wife seemed taken aback and accused me of caring too much about what others thought of us. She even suggested that I might be embarrassed of her, which led to a heated argument, and she eventually locked herself in our room. Since then, we haven't spoken much, and I'm sleeping on the couch, feeling too ashamed to discuss this with anyone in my personal life. Am I the jerk? Update. When I returned to the office, I had a chance to speak with my director about the situation. He and most of my coworkers found the incident quite amusing, likely because I'm known as the stoic, reserved guy in our workspace. Later, I had a lengthy conversation with my wife, starting with an apology for overreacting. I expressed sentiments that I don't usually share, but knew she appreciated. She accepted my apology and apologized as well, admitting that she was also embarrassed and genuinely thought my webcam was off. She mentioned that her spontaneous action might have been aimed at conveying that I'm a family man to my coworkers. However, she did admit to feeling slightly uncomfortable with the fact I work so closely with some of my female colleagues. Finally, she expressed a desire for me to be more physically affectionate, which she felt had diminished due to my longer work hours. Things have cooled down by now, but I still can't shake off a slight sense of embarrassment about the whole incident. Am I the jerk for leaving after my mom kept joking about my childhood and calling me her practice kid? My, 19 mil, parents had me young and on accident. My childhood was nothing but money problems and listening to my parents fight with each other. Things only got better when my mom left my dad and started seeing my stepdad. He brought financial stability and is more of a father to me than my biological dad ever was. They have a daughter together, my sister Melody. I'm not blind. I know they shower her with attention and buy her everything they can because I never had anything when I was her age. When I was younger, it frustrated me to see her loved in a way that I never was, but now I know that my mom did her best with the experience and resources she had. It's just bad luck that it worked out the way it did. With that context out of the way, Melody recently turned 4 and my parents went all out. They invited not only all of the family in the area, but also some of Melody's friends from daycare and their parents. Once my mom and the other moms had a few drinks each, they started gossiping. The conversation, which I was not part of but was listening to because I was bored watching the kids, turned to sharing stories about their kids. My mom, instead of sharing cute stories about Melody, decided to tell a group of random moms about the time I tried to make my parents stop fighting by collecting change lying around the house and giving it to them. I was 7. She was laughing the whole time and ended the story with, the things you learn with the oldest. Practice kids, am I right? My new husband and I never fight in front of Melody. I think that's why she's so much easier than OP. That story is a painful memory for me. I was so hurt that she thought it was so hilarious, but I didn't say anything and just tried to brush it off. The moms started talking about kindergarten because a few of them have kids who will be starting in the fall. My mom, who by then had had more than a few, decided that it would be a great idea to share the story of how she carried the school into letting me do gym class in my winter boots because that was the one pair of shoes I had. Again, she told the whole story with a grin on her face and laughing. The last thing she said almost made me blow up. Thank goodness Melody can have all the shoes she wants. Though with how much crap OP pulled at that age, maybe it was best I didn't waste money on the practice kid. I texted my mom, I'm glad you find how poor and miserable we were so funny, but it really upsets me you clearly think of me as a practice for Mel. I'm going, so someone should watch the kids. I then left without talking to anyone. When I got home, I checked my texts, and I found a rant from her, saying that they were her stories and that she felt that she could share them however she wanted to. She called me sensitive for not taking a joke and suggested I get a therapist. I already have one and she knows that, because I was jealous of a 4-year-old. She said I was rude for leaving. I was too upset to respond then, but after some thought, I may be in the wrong. Am I the jerk? Update. So the first thing I did was talk to my stepdad. Contrary to some of your assumptions, I don't live at my parents' house, so I asked him over to breakfast to talk on a day my mom had work, but I had off. He knows I usually plan around my mom's work schedule, so I think he knew it was serious beforehand. We sat down over eggs, and I told him what had happened. He had been doing something else at the time and was absolutely shocked. Apparently, my mom had told him a twisted version of events. According to him, she'd said that I had sent her an angry text because of a few harmless jabs, and that she was only kidding and didn't mean any harm. She also had conspicuously left out her drunken text to me. His reaction to the actual content of her jokes can only be described as a deep sadness and frustration. He offered me true support and affirmation, something that I could never picture my mom doing in a million years. My mom can be nice, but she's not great at anything deeper than platitudes. What did I ever do to deserve him? He was also completely blindsided by the fact that there was alcohol at the party. Apparently, he had left the planning to her and had no idea. I told him that I want to go very low contact with my mom for a bit and asked for his help to see him and Melody without having to deal with her. He said that he understood and agreed to have me over when she's not around. He told me he would get my mom help with her emotions and her drinking, and I told him that she probably wouldn't cooperate and promised to help him get her the help she needs in what ways I can. A half hour after my stepdad left, I texted my mom the following. Hey Ma, I've mulled over what happened at Mel's party, and I've come to the realization that our relationship is not healthy. You put me down for things that weren't my fault and laugh at how you and my biological dad messed up my childhood. It hurts to hear you speak about me like that, and I don't think you understand exactly how much. I've also come to the understanding that you serving alcohol at the party without even telling Dad isn't normal. This isn't a one-time thing, and you've been doing it too much. You have two problems, and until you get some serious help with both of them, I would like very little contact with you. Please don't contact me again outside of an emergency. I then blocked her from texting me. I know this isn't as dramatic of an update as you were hoping for, but I hope that someone can take something from it. I know it's only been a few days, but I have no regrets. Maybe going cold turkey with her was what I needed. Am I the jerk for correcting my stepdaughter's dad when he called me her nanny? I've been with my wife for 8 years now. She has primary custody of her daughter, Santana, who's 9. Santana sees her dad, Mark, every other weekend and some holidays. As I've been one of Santana's primary caregivers for the past 7 years, since I moved in with her mom, I've taken care of her more than Mark has, and we are quite close. My wife and I went on to have 2 kids together, who are now 5 and 18 months old. I've been a stay-at-home dad since the 5-year-old was born. As a result, I'm the one making lunches, driving kids to activities, etc. That includes for Santana. Mark has always felt insecure about my place in Santana's life. I've always encouraged her relationship with her dad, while also being a place she can go to in order to vent about both her parents. I've never asked her to call me dad, but I've made it clear I love her the same as her siblings. And she's also said she loves me and considers me her second dad. Mark also mocks me for my stay-at-home dad role. My wife always shuts him down, and I just ignore him. He has in the past jokingly called me Santana's nanny, and I just roll my eyes and say, whatever you think, Mark. I really don't see him much, as my wife will take Santana to her dad's and pick her up. However, yesterday, my wife was sick and asked me to pick up Santana. She really couldn't get out of bed, and I knew Mark wasn't going to drive out to us. He's refused in the past. So I went over to his place to pick her up. He was throwing a barbecue and had some family there. I had never met any of them. Santana ran into my arms, excited to see me and shouting my name. A few people looked at Mark curiously. He laughed and said, "That's Santana's nanny." I shook my head and said, "I'm her stepfather, Greg. Nice to meet you all." Mark turned red and barely said goodbye to Santana. I didn't think much of it outside Mark just being Mark. However, Mark texted my wife later saying I humiliated him, and given I'd likely never see those people again, I shouldn't have said anything. My wife told him he's overreacting and then texted me saying I had no right to correct him in his own home. My wife told him he's overreacting, and he then texted me saying I had no right to correct him in his own home. He asked what was the big deal and his family thinking I'm her nanny. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk, but man, Mark must be feeling really insecure about himself, that's for sure. You're doing great, Greg. Santana is lucky to have you. My fiance doesn't want to invite his sister-in-law to our wedding because she has feelings for him, when it's more the other way around. My fiance, Will, has a younger brother, Charlie, who's 34, and he's married to Evie, who's 33. Evie is a beautiful woman both inside and out. She's one of the nicest people I've ever met, and she's an amazing and supportive friend, maybe the best friend I've ever had. Will, Charlie, and Evie went to school together. Charlie and Evie have been together for 20 years. They married pretty much straight out of high school. During their time at school, Will and Evie went on to date before she started dating Charlie. Will had been hounding her for a date, and she eventually said yes to try and make Charlie jealous, as she liked him but didn't think he felt the same way. Yes, completely aware this is ridiculous, but Evie was 13 at the time. Evie told me about this date pretty early on. She had wanted me to know in case I thought she had feelings for Will. She made it very clear that she's never had romantic feelings for Will and that she just used him to get that one date to make Charlie jealous. I do know that Will had feelings for Evie, and from what he said, he stopped having them since we've been together. Will and I are currently in the process of planning our wedding for next summer. We've been putting together a list of who we want to ask to be a part of the wedding party and who we want to invite to the wedding. I want to have Evie as one of my bridesmaids because I know she'll be supportive and reliable. Will frowned and told me that he wasn't planning on Evie being part of the wedding. I asked if he had a falling out with Charlie and wasn't inviting him either, as they're a package deal as a married couple. Plus, there's no way one would attend without the other. He replied that he hadn't fallen out with his brother, but he couldn't see himself getting married with Evie there, as according to him, she still has feelings for him, and he wouldn't want it to ruin our day. I know for a fact that she doesn't. I asked him if she had confessed feelings or something. He said no, but it's the way she is with him. He gave examples like how she's always around our house. Evie and I run together 3 times a week. As I live closer to her work, she comes to ours to change instead of going home. How she'll make his favorite dessert when we celebrate Christmas at their place. His birthday is Christmas Eve. How she does little thoughtful things like dropping off baked goods for us, or how she takes an interest in things he's interested in. The 3 of them support the same football team. To me, none of this is Evie showing she has romantic feelings for him. She's just being a good friend. I told him this, but he's insistent on not inviting Evie to the wedding. I know that if Evie isn't invited, Charlie won't attend, and it will snowball further as the family are really close, but it will look like I'm the one causing this. I reached out to Evie after the conversation with Will, and I asked her to be honest with me if she had any sort of romantic feelings for Will. At first, Evie laughed at the idea of her having any sort of feelings for Will. She then admitted that until I met Will, he had made her uncomfortable, but it had lessened since we got together 2 years ago. She explained that Will would make comments about how they were more suited than her and Charlie. He used to send her drunk messages about how they belonged together. She told me that Charlie knew about the messages and they had pulled themselves away from Will during that period, but only allowed him back in when I started dating him. I asked her if he had sent her anything like that since we've been together. Evie went quiet on the phone before saying that he had sent her a message on the weekend when Will, Charlie, and some of their friends had gone out drinking. She had canceled on running this week but hadn't given me a reason, and it turns out she's avoiding Will. Charlie also hasn't been talking to his brother since the night out because of the message. She sent me that message and it was very, very bad. He told her that he wished he was the father of her baby. Evie's pregnant with their 4th, and not Charlie, and how he'd be a better dad than Charlie could ever be. I'm not sure what to do. I love Will, and he's convinced that Evie has feelings for him when she's made it clear that she does not. I thought Will had moved on, but he's now sending Evie messages. Is there anything I can do, or is this relationship just doomed? Edit. Not that it makes anything better. Will was 15 when they had the date. Evie is 6 months younger than her husband. She's 34 next month. I told Will that we need to talk when he comes back from taking his mom to an appointment this morning. It's nothing serious, just taking her to get new glasses. I think he knows I want to talk about Evie, as he asked if it was about Evie and the wedding. I said yes, and he sighed before telling me we would discuss it when he comes back. I'm gonna put together a weekend bag so I can leave quickly if I need to. I've texted Evie and Charlie to tell them I'm going to talk to Will about his behavior because it needs to change and he needs to realize that nothing will ever happen with Evie. Charlie responded wishing me luck and has said that their house is open to me if I need it. He also apologized for me having to go through this, as they shouldn't have stuck their heads in the sand about this hoping it would go away. I know I should have brought this up after she told me, but I'm very non-confrontational and will try to avoid an argument if I can. Update. Will and I had a talk when he came back. I told him that I knew about the text he had sent to Evie on the weekend. He denied it straight away, telling me that she was lying, but quickly changed his tune once I started reading him the text. He then started to apologize and claimed it was just a moment of weakness after Charlie had been showing the group pictures from their family holiday last month. One of them had made a comment about Evie being out of Charlie's league, which reminded Will that he had lost his chance with Evie all those years ago. He then sent her the text. I asked him how he would feel if it had been Charlie harassing his partner, and he just lowered his head and said he would be upset, but that Charlie didn't deserve Evie. I told him that Evie wasn't an object to be given to whomever is deemed worthy of her, and that she chose Charlie, and that should have been enough for him. The fact there is someone out there who loves Charlie for who he is and makes his brother happy should be enough. Will told me that he was jealous of Charlie, as he has everything he wanted, and it wasn't fair because he's the eldest. Charlie did better than Will in school. He was better at sports. Charlie is more successful as he was able to do what he wanted. Will feels he had to do what his parents expected, while Charlie could go to uni for whatever he wanted. Seeing Evie with Charlie is a reminder that Charlie has everything he wants. I asked Will if Evie was single and interested in him, would he leave me? Will refused to answer the question, but it was all I needed to hear. I told Will that I was going to stay elsewhere for a couple days while I figured out where I'll go, because we are over. I don't want to stay living with someone who doesn't care about me. When I went to go and get the bag I packed, Will asked me if he could have the ring back as it's a family heirloom. It belonged to his grandma and was intended for whomever got married first, but when Charlie asked for it, Will apparently threw a massive tantrum over it, saying that it should be his since he's the eldest. I told him no, it was going to the person who it was meant to go to, Evie. I'm now at Charlie and Evie's for a couple days while I figure out getting a new place to stay or if I will move closer to my family. I work for myself, so that makes things easier. Charlie and Evie have decided they will be going low contact with Will. They would go no contact, but it would cause drama with the family, and neither want that, especially Evie. Will called Charlie asking if I was with them, but Charlie told Will that he had no idea where I was. Charlie then proceeded to tell Will that they're going low contact with him because of the way Will has been towards Evie, and that he is now doing what he should have done years ago to protect Evie. Evie has apologized several times as she feels she's the reason my relationship has ended, but I have reassured her that the only person at fault here is Will, and I don't blame her for anything. If anything, she's a victim in all of this too. I've given her the ring, but she has said that I should give it back to mother-in-law as she doesn't want it. I wish I had seen Will's behavior before it got this far, but I was blinded by love. Looking back, I can see there were red flags that I just decided to ignore. Old guy swipes my shopping cart with his Prius, expects to trade vehicle insurance. I was getting ready for a home project and had picked up some corrugated steel roofing, a load of lumber, and 4 bags of construction sand from the local big box home improvement store. The lumber was over 12 feet long. Everything fit on one cart. My pickup truck was parked in the parking lot, and I planned to push the cart there to load it, just like hundreds of other customers do. There's a high awning in the store exit, and after that, there's the parking lot. There's no pedestrian painted crosswalk, but this is California. Parking lots are pedestrian right of way. Anyway, I check both ways before pushing this heavy, long, and unwieldy load into the parking lot. I let the Jeep coming from my right go by. The Prius on my left is a long way away, so off I go. I didn't realize how fast the Prius was going, almost 40 miles per hour. I had about 8 feet of lumber into the parking lot when he drove up on me. He swerved to miss, so he didn't hit me head on, but he did kiss the load of 4x8s with his right front quarter panel. The wood then laid a perfect crease all the way down the side of his shiny Prius, all the way back to his rear quarter panel. With 200 pounds of sand, another 200 or 300 pounds of wood, and maybe 100 pounds of steel, the cart didn't move. Heck, the wood wasn't even damaged. The driver stopped almost 30 feet away, put his car in park, and came to check the damage. He was old. Look, I'll be 60 this year, but I guessed he was easily 20 years older. Skinny, and looked like dried jerky, but spry enough and alert. We asked if each other were okay. He checked the damage on his car, and out of habit, I took photos of the damage, his license plate, my cart, and the area. Then he came up and asked to trade vehicle insurance. I laughed in his face. My truck is parked way over there. Why would I give you the insurance for it? He got upset and asked me how I was going to pay for his car. I pointed out that he technically hit a pedestrian in a pedestrian area, was going too fast, and saw me enter his path from 50 feet away. He had plenty of time to halt and let me cross. He was upset, then hit on the bright idea that maybe the store was at fault and liable for parking lot accidents, and said he was going to talk to the manager. After he left, I decided I wanted to stick around and see what happened, but I needed my stuff loaded, so I left my cart parked out of the way, brought my truck under the awning, and started loading. The old guy and a manager came out, and once the manager understood what happened, she explained how the store was not liable. He talked about suing the store, and she shrugged and told him to go ahead. The company lawyers would take care of it. But since he said lawsuit, she couldn't talk anymore, and she left. He came back over to me and asked, how was I going to make this right? I told him nicely that since I had no damage, I didn't need anything from him running into me. He said I ran into him and that he was calling the cops. Okay, dude, you do that. I know something about the cops in this city. Unless there's something major, their response time can be measured in hours or never. So I went back and finished loading my truck, then I got in and sat in the AC to cool off. Finally, I wrote my name on a paper and my telephone number. I gave it to the guy and told him to give it to the cops when they arrived. And then I left. After about 5 hours, a cop called and asked to trade information about the guy. Basically, driver's license info. They were still at the store, and the guy sounded frustrated. So I read off the details of my license, and the cop read off the details of his license. No insurance info was traded. He just wanted to know who to sue. The cop emphasized the gentleman's birth date. That's when I learned he was 98 years old. Good on him for keeping his license. The cop emphasized this was a civil matter, and the old guy could sue. I said I understand and look forward to it. And that's where we stand. I've still no court summons and no other action. My backyard goldfish pond is still in work. New neighbor demands I stop fishing because it's bad for the environment. I, 25 male, live in my family's cottage, which I was given ownership of. The cottage itself is a waterfront property facing a medium-sized lake. My family has been living here for generations, as my great-grandfather originally bought it before passing it down, eventually leading to me. My neighbors are a different story, as many of the people I have known since childhood have moved out. The houses that my neighbors once had have been torn down and replaced with designer-style homes. With the construction of these homes come new neighbors and an HOA, of which I am not a member of. My problem started with my next-door neighbor, Sophie. She's in her 50s or 60s, overfishing. One day, after doing some canoe fishing, I was approached by Sophie on my beach. She started asking if it was legal to fish on the lake, to which I said it was, as long as you paid the $25 per year license. After that, I said that I had to go, as I had caught some fish and I wanted to start processing them for dinner as it was getting late. After our conversation, I did not hear from her for over 2 weeks. My encounter with her this time was not in person, but through a letter. In this letter, she wrote about how dangerous fishing is to the environment and why I should stop. In response, I chose to simply chuck it in my recycling bin and ignore her as it wasn't worth my time. My most recent encounter with her was 2 days ago, while I had some friends over. It was in the afternoon when I had ran back into the house for some more beers along with one of my friends. While grabbing the drinks, we heard a knock at the door. When I answered the door, it was Sophie, and she had another letter. Before handing the letter over, she said that she had tried to be diplomatic, and now she has had enough and has a letter from the HOA. Admittedly, I was a bit tipsy at the time, and in response, I laughed and called her stupid for believing the HOA can do anything before closing the door on her. After sobering up, I felt conflicted. On one hand, I felt that I was justified in my actions because my fishing is none of her business. On the other hand, I feel that I could have dealt with her in a more tactful way. Am I the jerk? It's kind of ironic, as an individual fishing for their own food in a canoe is about as sustainable as it can get. Not the jerk. That is kind of blowing my mind. Oh, sorry, Sophie. Let me just jump in my car, drive to the store, and buy some fish that was shipped in from somewhere else instead. Is that better? Not the jerk. She's bordering on harassment. Not only that, I'm sure she's lying, as the HOA knows you're not a member, which would mean that they can't do anything. Not only that, an HOA can't control how often and where you fish. This woman is the reason a vast majority of Americans refuse to live in an area with an HOA. Am I the jerk for getting an entire table for myself after my husband and his mom didn't save me a seat? I'll start this off by saying that I, female 32, have been with my husband Bob, male 39, for 3 years, married for 1. His mom has a habit of keeping me out of most of their functions with the excuse of, "You work too much." Not true, because sometimes I do make myself available, but yet find myself excluded. Last week, his mom invited us for a celebratory dinner at the restaurant after she completed her recovery. I had something to do on that day, but I let her and everyone else know that I'd be there at 8 p.m. Bob obviously knew I was coming. Thing is, when I arrived to the restaurant, I saw that the table was full. All chairs had been taken, and I just stood there with a complete puzzlement while Bob and his mom just stared at me. His mom then told me there was no place left for me, and that I could either have Bob get up and take his seat or go home. I was so upset, but instead of going home, I just went and took an entire table for myself. Bob and his mom watched with their eyes popping out of their heads like they saw something shocking. Not gonna lie, I did get weird looks from the guests, but so did Bob and his mom. It was awkward in all honesty. I had my dinner, dessert, then went home. I saw Bob and his mom staring grudgingly while I was making my way out. He got home an hour later and was yelling at me, saying that I embarrassed his mom in front of her guests. I yelled, asking what was I supposed to do after I got denied a seat, and he told me that it wasn't his nor his mom's fault guests arrived before me and took all the available chairs. I told him he could have saved me a chair. He said that I could have just left instead and reminded me that I was a guest and that I shouldn't expect this level of entitlement to be accepted. He then went on about how I ruined the entire dinner for him and his mom with what I did, and he's been pouting about it for days now. I don't get it. I really don't. Was my expectation really that entitled? I mean, as his wife, he should have saved me a seat, but clearly I'm missing something here. Not the jerk. OP, is this level of disrespect really what you want for the next 20 years? Not the jerk. They clearly excluded you and didn't help you get accommodated. This isn't some stranger, this is your husband, who had you eat dinner alone and then blamed you for what he did. Not the jerk. You are married to someone who values his relationship with his mother above you. He cares about how you made them look instead of how they made themselves look after denying you a seat. Here's what you do. 1. File for separation so you can start the divorce proceedings. 2. When he asks why you are going this route, tell him, "I'm choosing to walk away because I deserve better than the crumbs you leave thrown to the floor behind you. While I love and value you, I am not loved or valued by you because that spot belongs to your mother. There have been too many instances in our relationship where you have proven your mother is your priority regarding common decency, respect, or love. Until you open your eyes and see your mother's manipulations for what they are, you will be alone." 3. Start therapy for yourself so you can begin to move on. You're only 32. You shouldn't have to waste your love on someone who doesn't want it. Give it to someone who will stand up, love, honor, treasure, and be faithful to you. There are men out there. Unfortunately, the one you chose is not it. If you want to make things work with him, therapy and boundaries must be set in place. If he allows those boundaries to be crossed too many times, you know you did what you could and walk away with a clear conscience. Good luck to you. Don't stop now. We've got hours of the best stories waiting for you. Tap here and keep watching. And hey, if you love these, don't forget to subscribe.